so that if I say anything that's of interest, you can find it again later. So again, we have a big group. I'm gonna keep you all pretty much muted unless you're asking a question. Please feel free to ask questions. I'm not saying that I want you to sit still and be quiet, because I know that none of us like that. But what I want to do is, since we have such a large group, is I want to try to keep it so that the recording is a little bit clean for the people that want to watch the recording later, with the, dogs barking, cats meowing, people throwing stuff at each other, that kind of stuff. So anyway, we want to kind of keep it clean for the people that are going to watch later, and for us, really. This little ruler, oh my gosh, it is nothing that I would have ever imagined, but I actually bought one for my bestie, Jen, who is my quilter friend, who's coming to visit in December. So I actually asked her if she had one. She's like, no, do I need one? I'm like, oh no, you don't need one because I've already got it for her. But this thing is so stinking cool when it comes to border prints, because you get to pick what part of the border you want to focus on. And then that's going to determine how wide your table runner is going to be. So like on this one, when I did it, I did exactly what the directions said. I cut it 8.5 inches. I cut it by, by 1.25 yards or something like that. And then I thought, I wonder what else I could have done that was different. So I'm going to show you some different things of some things that I did. I've been cutting all morning. I've cut a little bit of pretty much every border pattern we have in the store. But it's amazing on how after you cut the border fabric and you start assembling your triangles, you're like, wow, I didn't even think it was going to look like that. I had no idea. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. So this is what I call, it's not really a directional border print. In other words, you can't tell which is the right side of the green. It could go either way. All right. So this is non-directional. On the other hand, if you have something like this is definitely directional, because the opposite triangles will have all of your pumpkins and cats upside down. So this is what I consider to be directional, meaning whatever the pattern is, it looks best one way. So, and then I'm going to be working with scarecrows today. So the scarecrows are definitely one way. So if you have one that's just one way, that's, we'll all do it the same way. It's just that you'll get more out of your fabric if it's not directional. And so I want to show you a couple of the things that I cut up this morning and how I did it. First of all, our ruler. I like to give little keywords and phrases that when you do things the second time you can remember. So when we start to cut, it's bottoms up. In other words, when we start cutting the direction of our angles, it's the bottom of the ruler up. So bottoms up. All right, that's going to kind of give us a hint. So this is the one that to me was the most amazing. People did not find this one to be as fun, I guess. We didn't sell as much of this one, although we might now that you see how cool it can be. So this is the flag fabric. And this is what I mean by determining how, so I didn't choose how wide that you can do your table runner as wide as you want. I'm not going to say cut it 8.5 inches because we're going to play with different prints. All right. So if I were to do this only 8.5 inches, then trying to find a place where I really felt like I got everything at 8.5 inches wasn't enough. I really wanted to see 2 bands of the flag print. So here's what I did. I cut mine bigger. So mine was cut at 11.25 inches because I left that 1/4 inch for my seam allowance. And this is what I ended up with. All the way around. This is the table topper part. And then somewhere in this pile of fabric is also my table runner part. But what I wanted when I did this is I wanted this part to be my center, but I also wanted that band at the bottom. So that if I wanted both of those things to happen, it meant that I had to cut larger than an 8.5 inch portion. So when I get this put together, I'm going to have stars and stripes and flags and this really pretty part with the all the way around. I also have some left over because to do that, I didn't start down here at the bottom. I actually started down here so that I could get enough of what I wanted. Oops, let me turn it around. The flags are upside down. I'm thinking, there we go. So I found a place that I really liked the patterns, the combination of patterns that I had. So, and I definitely wanted the big part twice. So by doing so, I maybe have made it so I can't do as many after I do my runner. I can do my runner and I can do a table topper, but I might not get like mug rugs and smaller placemats, things like that, because I wanted to use both of these. And I had 6 of them total all the way across the width of the fabric. So it didn't leave me as much left over. I can still do something with this, but this is actually my leftover piece. Whereas when I did the Christmas trees, I had quite a bit left over. And then so this is an example of what it's going to look like. So this was 11.5 inches. Let me just put this all in a pile. This was using the 11. So for the person that called and asked if they could use a 6-inch ruler instead of getting the Creative Grids ones, this is probably why I said, yeah, you're not going to have as much fun with that. You should probably get the other one. Because if you, with the 6.5 inch, it would have been a little bit more difficult to utilize all of the fabric. 6-inch triangle is great if you've got like just a traditional print maybe, but not this. All right, so here's the Christmas tree one. I love the Christmas trees. They're beautiful. So here's the center. And this is 8.5 inches. This is what the traditional, what the pattern called for. It was like a yard and I started with 1.25 yards, like they said on the pattern, and 8.5 inches. And this is really not a long enough table runner for my table. It might be for yours, but not for mine. And this is what I ended up with. Plus my table topper. Plus you can see some mug rugs that I was playing with. So you can see how the repeat of your pattern, how wide each part of your border print is, how wide you want your finished table runner, how long you want your finished table runner, all of those things play in. But what I hope that you feel comfortable with when we get done with class today is not feeling confined or blocked in by the rules or by the text that says you have to make it 8.5 inches. You don't. All right, so that's going to be that table runner. So that table runner's a little bit longer than the flag one. And then I still have a table topper, and you can see that I was working on some mug rugs with the little leftover pieces. And I had quite a bit left over from this. There's some more down here. So here's the strip that was left. So the strip was left because of how I chose to utilize the pattern, right? In order to get a full set of trees and some of this border in the middle and go by the 8.5 inch directions that were on the pattern, I had to give up something. And I didn't want to give up this. So I actually gave up kind of the bottom of my trees there a little bit. There'll still be tree bottoms there, but I didn't end up with as much leftover fabric this way. So here's what was left over, this little piece right here. So I have enough that I could do a table topper. But again, my table topper won't be as big. The table topper going in the diagonal or in a, I call it a circle only because I don't know what that shape is when you have 8 triangles. But it's not going to be as big because my triangles are smaller. So when I go to put these triangles together, it won't be as big as the cat one I just showed, the kitty cat one. It won't be as big as the flag one because I stayed within that 8.5 inches that was requested of me in the pattern. So you don't have to do that today for class. This is your table runner. You do it however you want. All right, so the only thing I did to prep for class today was actually press my fabric. And I always do that for no matter what I'm doing. So I just feel like getting a little best press in there and getting all the foldy wrinkles out is just a good place to start. And then what I have in, I'm just going to be sewing on the Solaris today because it was already back here from a class I did yesterday. So I'm sewing on that, and I'm just using an 80 Microtex 80 needle, 8012. And it looks like I am using Tutti or confetti, Tutti, which is a 50 weight cotton thread to stitch with. I'm going to put this together, and then I'm going to open up the scarecrows and show you with the actual yardage that's not cut what I'm talking about utilizing your pattern. So this is my 2-yard cut. This is what I asked you to get for class, and the reason for that is if you only got 1.5 yards and you had a large table, it's not going to be enough fabric to make a large table runner. So I figured, well, this way everybody gets can get a bigger table runner. And if you have a boo-boo, it's not the end of the world. You'll have enough. All right, so I'm going to start with, this is the total 42-inch width of my fabric. So you can see I have rows and rows and rows of scarecrows. So now I have to decide in these rows and rows and rows of scarecrows, how much of the pattern I want to utilize. And if you don't have this ruler, here's what the difference is between the Creative Grids and some of the other triangular rulers is the Creative Grids has this flat top on it. And that means that it's got your perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance right in there. So you don't have to worry when you're on the edges trying to, make sure you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't have to worry about having it at the top. You're always going to have it. So now I'm just going to take my ruler and say, okay, what part of this do I actually want to use? Do I want this part in the middle? Do I want to have scarecrows top and bottom? Do I want to make best use of the fabric, meaning I'm going to start at the bottom and cut half a row of scarecrows off? I mean, it just depends on what fabric that you have. So I know that I probably wouldn't like it if I sewed it together and I just had scarecrow legs and no scarecrow heads. So for me, I either have to decide I want to go like this route, and I'm still going to have scarecrow heads, but I could do this and do the entire 12-inch length. Or maybe I just want 8.5 length. So here's my 8.5 right here. So I have to work with that 8.5 line. I could do this. I could put it right here. And then I would have, I could have scarecrow and then a stripe and one of the green here, and I could have fruit at either end. If I come down here and try to do the 8.5 and find a place to kind of settle in, I could still do that, but I would have stripe, I would have scarecrow, and only have one stripe of the pumpkins. So again, it depends on how wide do you want your table runner. This is what it's going to look like if you do 8.5. So if you do the 8.5, it's going to come out 16 inches wide. So this is 16 inches wide. The squares or the triangles on this one, bigger. Okay, the triangles on this one are 12. So you can see the difference. Here's my 16 inches across. And if this was the table runner, then it's going to be way more than 16 inches across, because this one is the whole 12. So if you do the 8.5, it's going to be 16. Your ½ inch is kind of absorbed by your seam allowances. But this one I had some fun with. I got a little bit, I got enough to keep the black lines here. I got the seam down the middle here, and I still got some of the light color around the outside edge. So you can really be creative with how you choose to do these. And since I have the full 2 yards, I'm going to go ahead and go for, I like the pumpkins and 2 rows of scarecrows. So I'm going to go ahead and put this where I think I want it to finish. And I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit with the camera. Let's see here. All right, so I have my seam allowance at the top. So if I want the whole row of pumpkins, then I have to place that top edge that's the 1/4 inch above that row of pumpkins. So I'm going to go right to the top of this line. I'm sorry. So now it's determining how deep do I want it? Well, if I were to go to 8.5 inches, then I'm going to be right down here at the stripe. So that would work. And I could probably do it from the very bottom as well, 8.5, where I got some of the stripe, some of the scarecrow, some of the green, and then one row of the pumpkins. I want pumpkins on the bottom and pumpkins on the top. I think that's going to look kind of cool. So I have to look at where I'm going to be cutting this because I have to have my seam allowance here at the bottom. Let me come down here a little closer. All right. So I'm going to try to move
Hey,
this forward.
Michelle,
Yeah.
this is Gwen. I'm at home now and I want to join from my iPad and I'm in the waiting room.
All right. I just let you in.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So right now I can see, you know, the depth I can see on the line going down the center. So I have to have my 1/4 inch at the bottom. I know I want 2 rows of this. This is what I want. I have a big table. It doesn't matter how wide mine is. So 1/4 inch, I want both of these. I don't care if I get the green stripe down here because I'm going to have the green stripe up here. So I can go actually 11 inches, and 11 inches is going to give me my seam allowance on the green stripe. All right. So I'm going to begin to cut.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
Hi, this is Bonnie. This is a part that really confuses me. Could you, I can't see it on the fabric I bought at the shop, which is what you first showed. Can you just show me where to place it for this one?
For the, what do you have, the Christmas?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if there's some out there. Let me see what I can come up with.
I apologize, other class members.
All right, I have most of them, but I don't have all of them. So if there's something else that you guys want to see before I start to cut, let me know. And I know we don't have all of them, but let me move this out of the way. All right. So with this one, again, I decided that what was going to be the center of this was going to be the red part, right?
Okay.
So that means I have to have a little bit of the red part from each side. And we're going to cut single layer. You're not cutting double layer. So I wanted to have that line and then some of the white there. So I took the point. I took the point up to, here's where my point is. That's traditionally where my seam allowance is going to be. I took that and that's what I used to square off. All right. If you want to get kind of fancy dancy, you can move it up a little bit and then you'll have that narrow line of black like I had. Oh no, it's around the other side. So no, it's just, it wasn't down the center, it's around the side. So I just took this up to the tip. So can you see that? Can you see how that's there? And then I came down and decided, well, they told me 8.5. So I went with 8.5 on this. And so that gave me that little bit of, if I do 8.5, it had me cutting like right here at the 8 3/4. So I would have that 1/4 inch. And that's how I ended up with that. I mean, I followed it completely by the directions is what I did. So it says 8.5. It's like, okay, we're going with 8.5. So that's how I laid that out. So I look down here and you can follow, if you have the creative grids rulers, you have the line, you also have the markings down the center here, which I think is really very helpful. So I just put the 3/4 inch line down here at the bottom of the black line so that when I sewed it together, I would have that little bit of the tan still showing when I turned it right side out. Does that make sense? A little bit more sense now?
A little bit. Now you're starting where your placement was down at the salvage end, right? And
No,
then go,
I am not. No, I am not.
where
That's
did
the
you,
thing. This is
Which-
8.5 inches. So I'm saying this on this one, I'm using 8.5 inches of depth of fabric. So that's why it changes. It varies because I didn't start. If I started at the bottom down here, then when I got to 8.5 inches, if I did 8.5 inches, that's what my table runner is going to look like. I'm going to
Yeah.
have the wide part's going to be red, the inside's going to be green, and I'm going to have some tan at the top. That's
Yeah.
not what I wanted. If you're okay with that, you can start there. I wanted
No.
the red in the center. So
No,
then I have to move up to include the red and include this piece. Now, if you want to go a wider table runner, you can do that. Just leave that on there and use the selvage, but it's not going to be 16 inches wide. Because
Right.
if you look at these markings now, let me get it straight so you can.
it's just, the 2 is just above.
All right. So here's where I started. I
All right.
started because I wanted this down the center. So let me put the
Okay.
table runner up next to it. That might make it a little bit better visual. This is what I wanted when it was done.
Okay.
Okay.
What I didn't understand was which row of the repeating pattern you started at. So you
Yes.
were starting on the second, sort of, if you
yeah.
will.
I looked at what I wanted finished, and I
Yeah.
wanted this row down the middle. If you want this at the bottom, which is also beautiful, and then you'll have the green at the top with a little bit, then you can go ahead and start at the selvage edge. But I think what the beauty in this is, and also for us, that are not used to cutting right smack in the middle of the fabric, think of it more as fussy cutting rather than traditional ruler cutting. Okay, think of it as fussy cutting. I'm using this ruler here, first of all, to tell me how wide, because this is going to be my width down the center here. If I want a 16-inch width, then I need 8 usable inches. So 8 usable inches means it's going to be 8.5 with my 1/4-inch seam allowance, right? So if I want 8.5, I'm looking from here to here. That's the only part of the ruler that I'm using.
Right.
Okay. And that's how I'm going to position it, because that's going to show me how it's going to stitch out. So I've got part of it up here. I've got part of the 1/4-inch up here. And then if I do this and look at that 1/2 inch, then I've got, this would be my other 1/4-inch seam allowance. So I would want to go down to the 3/4 so that this is my 1/4 inch. I still have I wanted to have some tan left on the outside, but you don't have to. All right. So
Okay.
First of all, let's think of it let's break some of the pieces down. First of all, how wide do you want your runner from here to here? When the runner's finished across this way, how wide do you want it? So think of that number and write that number down. If you said you want it to be 20 inches, then you're working with from the tip of the ruler to 10 1/4 inch, because you have a 1/4 inch up here and a 1/4 inch down here that you're actually going to use as seam allowances. All right. So based on that finished measurement, let me see if I can grab a piece of tape. It might be easier to see with some tape on it. Okay, I got some green tape here, ladies. We're going to make this, because I mean to tell you, this was definitely a brain buster for me. I'm like, okay, how many times do I have to do this now? All right. So I have decided in theory that I want my runner from here to here to be 20 inches. So that means I need 10.5 total inches. So my 1/4 inch is already taken care of for me up here. So I know I need to have 10 1/4 inches because I need a 1/4 inch seam allowance down here. So what I've done is I've marked the 1/4 inch down here. So now this from here to here is what I'm going to arrange on my fabric to give me the look that I want. All right. So if I want to start at the selvage, that's okay. I can go down to the selvage. I can cut like right around on the 1/4 inch line, and then I'll have like this for I'll just maybe be on the black line instead of having some tan left. Or I can take that all the way down to that there. When I come up to the top, I'm going to have a row of red. I'm going to have a row of green, and I'm going to have part of a row of red at the top. All right. If you like that, you're good. If, like me, you wanted the green to be the bolder part and the stripes to not be so bold, then I'm going to move this up. I'm still using the same line to cut on. But now I'm looking at if I wanted that to be at this width, because remember, this one over here is only 16. This one, we said we wanted it to be 20. So now I look at, okay, I have to give myself a seam allowance. So if I want some of that tan to show, then I have to move this down. So that becomes my seam allowance right there from here to here. And this is that row that's going to show. And then I'm going to follow it all the way up. And this is what I'm going to have in the very center, like right here. All right. So that's what I'm visualizing. If I wanted like what, again, the 8.5 inches, then I wanted some tan in the center. I'm going to take my tape now and I'm going to move it to the 8.5, which I need to have 1/4 inch more because I have 1/4 inch at the top. I just don't have it at the bottom. All right. I'm going to set this up here at the top so that when I do my 1/4 inch, I have this tan strip. Okay. I'm coming down and this is where I'm going to cut here. And you can see how that worked out. I cut it here and this is the extra that I had left over when I turned it. This is that little 1/4 inch border that I actually wanted. All right. So first of all, right now, just decide how wide you want the table runner. This is 16 inches. This is using an 8.5 inch swath of fabric of your border print. On the scarecrows, for my table, it doesn't matter. It's big. It can be any size. But so what I did in that case is I decided what part of the print did I want to use. And I wanted to have 2 rows of the veggies, of the pumpkins. I could have done anything. I could have done, even different than that. Does anybody want to see a different print?
Yeah, I would like to see the Christmas trees.
Okay. Let me see if I've got that one. That one, I don't know that we actually have any left. The last piece. Okay. All right. So that print went first and there isn't any left. So let me see if I can make it happen with the one that I had cut. It was like a half-yard cut that somebody left behind.
So did she want to talk to me?
All right. So when and you'll just have to visualize with the piece that you have with what you have. All right, so I knew that on the Christmas trees, first of all, I wanted this one to be exactly 8.5, like like the pattern set. So let me get the Christmas tree fabric out of the way here. So with this, I went for the pattern directions. So that means that I went 8.5. So let me put my tape back on, my 8.5. All right. I went for my 8.5, which means that and 1/4 inch for my seam allowance at the bottom. So 8 3/4. All right, so I knew I wanted this. And I wanted enough of the flowers. And so then I had to cut off part of the border down here for the Christmas trees so there's my 1/4 inch seam allowance here. There's my 1/4 inch seam allowance there. What's left after I sew that together is 8.5 inches, 8.5 inches, I'm sorry. So again, it just depends on how wide you want. If you want it wider and you wanted to go say, if you wanted your table runner 10 inches when you're done, you're going to do 10.5 inches. And then I would have gotten more. I would have had some up here and some down here. So I could have gotten maybe the entire, I think there was like another line of something up here. I could have got another black line. I could have added that to it as well. So again, how wide do you want it? That's the first question. That is the main question. How wide do you want the table runner? All right, so let me get back. Are we good to go, or is there any more questions? I think as I go along, it'll make a little bit more sense. So trust me, I actually did it a few times with Christmas wrapping paper at home, actually, before I actually cut into actual fabric. But this one is so this is probably a good one to show it on because this has a good repeat on it. All right, so with this, I wanted 2 rows of flags. That's what is important to me, was to have the 2 rows of flags. I didn't care how wide it was. I knew that I wanted 2 rows of flags. So that means I can use the seam allowance down here and a seam allowance up there. That's what I need. All right, so I'm going to place the ruler up there. And then as I'm looking at it, here's my 1/4 inch seam allowance at the top. And as I come down to the bottom, I can see that if I want to use this, if I just want this blue at the bottom, then I need to do 11 1/4. All right, so if I do 11 1/4 and I multiply that by 2, then I have 22.5. When I take away my seam allowance, then I have 22 inch wide. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start, unless there's another question, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting on the scarecrows because I think it's new. So here's what I found for me, all right, is I overthought it. I'm terrible with math. So when it comes to math, anything that has numbers in it scares the bejesus out of me. So I went, okay, I'm just going to do this intuitively. I'm going to set the directions aside. I'm just going to do it intuitively. And I had no problem with it intuitively. But I know everybody's not intuitive. So I'm going to show you with the scarecrows. All right. So here's my scarecrows. And I have my whole 2 yards of fabric here. If I wanted to do 8.5 inches, if I wanted it to be 16 inches wide, I'm going to take my green tape and I'm going to put this back at the 8.5 inch mark. All right. And so now if I felt like I needed to start at the selvage, then obviously I can't start at this selvage because it's all fuzzy down there. So, but maybe I could put the 8.5 right at that line right there. If you're not muted, please mute unless you're asking a question. I'm going to take my 8.5 inch line and I'm going to put it right at that line down there. And that's going to be my stitching line down there. And yes, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question. So when you said if it's going to be 16 inches wide, you're talking about total when you're done. That's when you do this 8.5?
Yes. So the 8.5, the 1/2 inch actually sucks up your seam allowances. So
right.
it's twice, and it's twice because you have a top and a bottom. And then that gives your finished total of 16. And so if I were going to do that here, and I didn't want to waste any fabric, I wanted to utilize everything. I'm going to make coasters. I'm going to make placemats. I'm going to make table toppers. I'm going to make a table runner. I'm going to utilize every single piece of fabric. And I wanted it to be 16 inches wide. Then I want to start with the selvage. So remember, your seam allowance is in here. So however you position this on this green piece of tape, that's a 1/4 inch above that is your seam allowance. So if this is where you want it to stop, you have to slide down and give that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then if I go all the way up to the top, I would get some vegetables up there, some of the squash and the pumpkins, but I wouldn't get all of it because here's the top of it right here. And here's my seam allowance. So that's what my boundaries, if I want it 16 inches wide and B, want to use the selvage. All right. So let's do a different look at it. Okay. I'm looking at this going, I want 2 rows of the squash, 2 rows. I want 2 rows of squash, 1 row of scarecrows. I can't do it from the salvage edge because here's the, I don't get a whole row, which means that I have to move up. It doesn't mean that I can't do coasters out of this. It just means that I'm not going to be using that for the table runner part. Total, when I'm done, I want 2 rows of squash or pumpkins, and I want 1 row of scarecrows. So I'm going to move this up until I have 2 rows of squash or pumpkins, however. And then note where I'm putting the top here. This across the top is my seam allowance. So if I want to not avoid driving myself crazy by having to match those small stripes there, I'm going to place this right below that line there, because that way that'll go into my seam allowance and I'll still have my row of squash. And then I'm going to come down this way and say, okay, this is what I want. I don't care how wide it is. I want a row of these, a row of this, and a row of this in my finished runner. I can't do that and keep it 8.5 inches. That's not going to happen. So I have to come down and go, okay, what do I need to do here? And it looks like if I use 10.5, then I will have a 20-inch wide runner. My seam allowance will be right here. I will get my 2 rows of pumpkins and my 1 row of scarecrows. So that means it's not going to be 8.5. It's going to be 10.5, which means it's going to be 20 inches wide. What if I decide I want 2 rows of scarecrows and only 1 row of pumpkins? Well, I'm not going to be able to do that. Well, I probably could. I could cut their feet off at the bottom, I guess. But in order to do that, you see the 12 inches, there's more than 12 inches between the bottom of this row and the top of this row. All right, does that make a little bit more sense? Are we kind of making some progress? All right, so I've already determined that I want 2 rows of the squash. So then I'm going to look and go, okay, how many rows, how many cuts am I going to get on this? Well, let's see. I have these 2 rows here because I can't use the one at the bottom because the one at the bottom at the salvage is unusable. So I have these 2 rows here that I can use. And then I have these 2 rows here that I can use. So that means I'm going to end up with a piece up here that's bigger. So look at this, could be a good table topper because it's going to be above that, or it could be placemats, or it could be any number of things. But what I do know is that I want, this is my wants. It doesn't matter how wide the table runner is. I want 2 rows of this and 1 row of this. That's what I want. So now I'm going to decide where I need to cut. And I'm going to cut across the top of it first because that's easier. And then I will trim off the bottom first. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I have a whole 2-yard cut of fabric is what I'm working with. All right, so I'm going to measure first. Or remember, I want 2 rows of these and 1 row of these. So if I look at this, I'm not worried about this brown part right there. So I'm looking at, okay. So my line right here is the 1/4 inch is this part right here. Let me get a pen and mark it so that maybe you can see it and make it easier to see. All right, so this is my finished. Right here is where I want my seam. This is where I want my seam, right here. Can you guys see that? All right, this is where I want my seam. That means I need to go a 1/4 inch above that. So if I flip my ruler around, I have a 1/4 inch right here. So that's telling me where I need to cut. So I'm actually using that line as a guide. And then I'm just gonna trim off a quarter inch above that. So I put my 1/4 inch line on that line from my ruler. And I'm gonna cut this all the way across. So this is the 1/4 inch mark on my ruler right here. I'm setting that mark right along that line and just cutting straight across.
Aren't your pumpkins going to be upside down that way?
No, because I'm actually going this way. I just don't want to have to go like this and cut little tiny cuts. This is my top. This is my top. Yeah, that's my top, and my pumpkins are not going to be upside down. I'm using the bottom of the ruler in lieu of a different straight edge because it's wider at the bottom. But let me get a regular ruler and maybe that'll be easier for you. This way you just have to have one ruler. I can just use the other side of it as a straight edge, but I'll just use this ruler and maybe that'll make more sense. It's still the same 1/4 inch, and it's still the same direction. When I get all the way across, I'll show you, but it's just easier to only have to hang on to one ruler. And this one's actually got a pretty long base on it. Working on a really small table under a really small camera is sometimes challenging in positioning of fabric. So I'm just maintaining the 1/4 inch seam allowance that I'm going to use to sew. So this is going to be the center of my, I'm going to have 2 pieces that mirror image each other. This is going to be the center. Please tell me I'm getting to the end soon. Oh, there it is. Yay, I can see daylight again. All right, let me get this big part out for now. I'll need it again for my second row. All right, so now I'm going to turn it back the other direction again. It's just trying to cut this way isn't going to happen for me. I have to go that way. All right, so there's my first cut. Remember, my cut is not based on width. My cut is based on what I want when I'm done. So I've got my first cut there. And then I know that I want this, 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 and this. So for me, I want this to be 10.5. All right, so now I just need to measure 10.5 inches down. 10.5 inches down is, where's the pen? Because again, I don't want part of a head. I'm okay if I keep the green. If I want to go further and go 11, that's fine. I'll keep the green, but I know for sure I want both of these. So now I need to see All right, so if I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I have a choice. I can either have my 1/4 inch seam allowance be right here, where I'm still getting part of it, or if I don't care how wide it is, I can keep that green there and I can go a 1/4 inch down here. So it just depends on if I don't care how wide it is. So right now, if I go here, this is going to be 10 1/4 inches, which means I'm going to get 18, 19 and a half inches when I'm done. I think it doesn't matter to me. It just matters. The pattern is all that matters to me. So the width of the runner doesn't matter. If you want to stick with 8 and a half, look at this. If I wanted to do 8 and a half, I still could. I just would be making my 8 and a half inch cut right here. So I'd still be 8 and a half. Then I would have a 16 inch wide table runner and my 1/4 inch seam allowance would be right here. I'd have a little bit of this, a row of scarecrows and a row of pumpkins. But I really want this row of pumpkins. And I think I'm going to go ahead and go for keeping that green stripe. All right, so that means that from that green stripe, wherever the seam allowance is, if I want to keep that little piece of brown, then that's where I'm going to cut my seam allowance, my 1/4 inch, because I have to have that 1/4 inch so I can keep that little piece of brown. And I'm not that good, so I'm going to give myself a little bit beyond that piece of brown. And that's where I need to cut. Is right there. That gives me 1/4 inch seam allowance plus a little piece of brown and a little piece of other. So it's not like I don't have to sew a perfectly straight line there. All right. So now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to make my cut. Trying to get it to go straight over the edge of the table there. There we go. All right, so if the 1/4 inch, I can use the straight edge ruler if I want to use this one and measure from there. That's fine. I just find it easier because this is a straight edge too, is to just use the straight edge of this ruler. All right, this is going to be something else. This can be part of the topper. This can be part of a placemat. This can be part of a mug rug. I can use that for something else, but I'm not using it for this. All right. So hopefully this is now making a little bit more sense. I know that I had to do it a couple of times and then I was like, okay, now it makes sense. So my second cut needs to be a piece that is exactly the same as this one if I want it to match up, which means that there's going to be pattern in the middle that is not going to be used for the actual runner. And that's fine. I can use it for something else.
Maybe try zooming out a little bit. Maybe you're too close for us to really, maybe that's better.
Okay.
Try
It's
that.
better for me
Thank
because
you.
when I'm zooming in like that, then the arm of the camera just pinches the back of my hair and grabs a chunk. Thank you, ladies. I don't have
Yeah,
to
I think
leave
that's
today
better.
bald.
So
Well, it's
Michelle,
better
are you
for me. I
cutting the
didn't know about the
full
others.
length of your
Yeah,
fabric?
one of you at a time. No, yes, I'm cutting the full length of the whole 2 yards, but one of you at a time. What was the other question before? Somebody, 2 of you were talking at the same time. Okay, if you think of it and I
It was
haven't covered
just
it.
me saying thank you.
Oh, okay, you're welcome. You know, when I start to cut and sew this, it's gonna make perfect sense. I promise it's gonna click, because I was in the same place as you when I started this. All right. So this is gonna be my runner. As long as it might be, this is the first piece. Now, I need another piece just like this that I'm gonna sew together here in the center. So now I'm gonna go get my big piece of fabric in. I'm just gonna set this off to the side a little bit, because I probably can do this better if I stand up, and you can probably see better if I stand up. All right, so this is my first cut right here. So my second cut needs to be a mirror image of this one. So here's the piece that I'm not using that's right now, that's attached to the salvage edge. This is the other thing that was left, but I could easily use this to make a small table topper. I could use it to make some mug rugs. I could use it to make lots of different things. Nothing gets wasted. All right, so here's the fabric again. Here's the other salvage edge. All right. So I have 2 choices here with this. I can take these 2 rows and the scarecrow here, which is going to leave me this much at the other end. Or I can cut here and here, which is going to give me considerably shorter pieces. I'm going to have a piece that's about 6.5 inches wide there, and a piece that's roughly about 8 or 9 inches wide there. So I'll tell you where I'm going to go and why. It's going to seem like it's more wasteful, and I get that, but in the long run, it won't be. If I go here and I have this big piece down here, I can't really do anything with that big piece because no matter where I cut, I'm going to be cutting in the middle of something. I'm either going to be cutting this scarecrow in half. Shoot, I lost my picture now. Let's see, where did it go? There it is. Because of what I chose because I wanted 2 rows of pumpkins. I need 2 rows of pumpkins, 2 rows of green, 1 row of scarecrows in the middle. I can do it. 2 rows of pumpkins, 2 rows of green, scarecrow in the middle, cut here. This leaves me this big piece. All right. This big piece, I could do like a placemat or something out of, but if I try to do something smaller, especially if I'm looking at size constraints, like I need it to be a certain inch wide, I'm going to be cutting my scarecrows right down the middle, and that's not going to be an attractive look for the scarecrows. If I go ahead and I take this here, instead of cutting from that other salvage edge, then let's get it down to the 10.5. I'm going to lose, come up. I'm going to have an entire row up here with pumpkins and scarecrows that I may not lose anything. But if I have this extra at this end, I'm going to have the pumpkins in the middle, and I'm going to have to be cutting the scarecrows in half. So to me, the better use of the fabric is going to be to leave this piece up here whole for something else. So now I'm going to look at, this has to be a mirror image. It's like it's almost continuous. So that means I'm still going to be cutting in the same place. So here's my 1/4 inch. And I'm coming up here, and here's my 1/4 inch. All right. So I'm using the 1/4 inch mark on the ruler on the straight edge. It's not that I'm cutting it upside down, because I'm not cutting anything yet but strips. cutting upside down occurs when I start using the angle of the ruler. So I feel pretty confident I can do something pretty small with those scarecrows when they're left, with what's left. I'm going to do the bottom edge. I always do usually I pick the top edge first, but since I already know where the top edge has to go from the last one, then I can go ahead and start on this edge. But when I started on all of them, I always picked my top edge first. So I want to make sure that I get, when I'm done, the part of the fabric that I think for me is the prettiest. So I like these scarecrows. They're pretty cute, actually, and I can still use these. And I think I'm going to use this little runner at home for Thanksgiving, I think. Which I cannot believe is next week. How in the heck did that happen, ladies? Did you make that happen? I can't believe how fast the fall has gone. Fall's my favorite season. I'm like, I just want it to be Halloween still. And after watching how much turkey costs on the news last night, I'm really glad that John and I are making ravioli because I don't have to buy the turkey. All righty, I'm getting there. Whoa, I made it all the way to the one end. So this is the piece of fabric that I'm going to save for something, and I could actually use it for something else. Look, I could do smaller ones. If I go, I can do that. I mean, there's lots of little things I can do with a narrow strip of fabric, but it's going to leave me with a better strip of fabric at the top, which gives me more options. All right. So now, go the other direction. 2 yards is a big piece of fabric. Where did I put my, here it is. So if I don't remember, like I just didn't, I can grab my first cut and I know that it has to be a mirror image. So that kind of gives me an idea of where I have to cut. Yep, that's right. See, so this is definitely going to give me a bigger piece that look at, I could do a set of placemats. I could do placemats out of this. Because look, I can utilize that part for my seam allowance, and I've got all this down here. And I've got literally almost 9 inches. So I could do a pretty cute set of placemats with this. So the other reason why I like this ruler over this ruler is this one has too many lines in it. This one actually just has 1/4 inch marking, so it's easier for me to actually make a precise cut. Almost there, ladies. Plus, I love that this has the anti-skid on it. Please tell me the end is coming up soon. It's there. All right. So this is again leftover, but this is leftover that I could easily do a table topper out of, especially because it's like 2 yards long. So I may cut this up after, depending on what time we finish up. I'm going to cut this if I have time to do this and the table topper, we're going to cut this up for a table topper too. So now I have both of my pieces, all right? So this is how I want to end up. All right. So my scarecrows are going the same way on opposite sides of the table. No matter what side of the table I sit on, I'm looking at the scarecrow on the right side up. This is going to be my center strip. So I'm just going to take this and fold it over the top one. And you want to make them even. And you also want to make sure your ends are square. So I'm just going to kind of put this together for right now, so that it's all mirror imaged. And I will fold part of it up. I'm going to cut on one end and then unfold and cut on the other end. You do want to make sure that you lay it out as close to perfectly mirror imaged as you can. Then we're going to start making some magic here with our triangles when I get this finally all together here. I'm going to just warm my iron up. And it's been pressed, but it's been thrown over the table a couple of times. So I'm going to give it another light press. All right, so now is the time where I would say, okay, I have to decide how long do I want this table runner. So the basic math on that is if you have 54 inches wide, and that's what, and you want, and that's what you want is 54 inches wide, then how deep did you make your cut? So at 8.5 inches, then you would, at 8.5 inches, that means your seam allowance is gone. That means it's 8 inches. So 8 and 8 is 16 wide. You would minus 8 inches of the actual length. So if I want it 54 inches wide, then I'm going to minus that 8. It's going to be 46 inches wide because the points of my triangles are going to equal space. In this case, my thing is 11.5 inches wide, meaning I'm going to have 22 inches when I'm done. So meaning 11 inches after my seam allowance is gone. So if I wanted it to be 54 inches, that same 54 inches, now I'm looking at taking off 11 inches of that 54 inches. So that it would be 42 inches because my points are going to equate, but I don't care what length this comes out. Although what I have might be kind of long. So I'm going to just work with what I have because it doesn't matter. I don't even remember how long my table, I think my table's like 60 or something. So if I had a 60-inch table and I wanted it to be 60 inches when it was done, then that means I would have to take off, I would do 60 minus 11, which would be 49 inches. So that's what I'll do. First of all, I'm going to square off this edge, this end down here. Let me get it straight on my mat here.
Michelle, we can't see at the end. There.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm just squaring off on that edge is all. All right, so I said I wanted it 60. And my depth from here to here is 11.5 inches. So that 11.5 inches, when I do my seam allowance, becomes 11 inches, which means that I have to take, if I want 60, I have to measure out 60 and then take 11 inches off the end. So that's what I'm going to do. So here's 20. I'm just going to fold that for now. And here is 40. All right, and then here is my 60. Here's my 60 inches. This is what I want when I'm done. I have to take 11 inches off of this because the points are gonna count for that. So I'm gonna come back to 20 and cut it off at 19 here. I'm just measuring. It's the number is irrelevant. I don't want to have to go back to number 1. So here's 60 inches. This is 60 inches down here. I want 60 inches when I'm done. My triangles are 11. My points and my triangles that I'm going to add are 11. So I'm going to take 11 inches off, which means I'm going to cut it at 19 because it's on the 30 mark. All right, I'm going to set this aside. And now I'm going to start with cutting my triangles. All right, so I'm going to cut them all the way to the end over here where it was straight. So at the beginning, remember I said bottoms up, meaning the flat end of the ruler bottoms up. This is the important part. In other words, you're not always going to be you're never going to be putting it in that way unless you use the whole 12 inches because your 1/4 inch is down here. So you can see how you would have way more than a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So what you're going to do is you're going to slide this up using this as your guide, and we're going to make our first cut. Here's the important thing. Don't short sheet yourself over here or you won't be able to use this corner. You have to have your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to slide this over a little bit until I can see that I'm going to have my 1/4 inch seam allowance for this triangle because these are half triangles. Just think of them as your half triangles, but they're not half square triangles. When you sew them together, they're going to make one triangle. You have to have that 1/4 inch seam allowance if you're going to use them. I'm going to make sure that my ruler is straight. And I'm going to stand up and make my first cuts. All right, so this cut is not going to be used. Oh, shoot. I got to move the camera this way, ladies. I got to get around there. All right, so this one is going to be for our table topper, not our table runner. Well, why are you not cutting? There we go. All right. Now I'm going to make my second cut. And this piece is going to be for my table runner. So I'm going to set this piece over here. And then I'm going to make a second cut, or a third actually. And again, I'm putting the top here. And make this cut. And this is going to go over into the table topper pile. Guess I could have put a new blade in, I suppose, huh? All right, so table runner, table topper. All right, so this end is done. I'm going to go down to the other end. And I'm going to do the same thing. Remember, bottoms up first. So this is going to go down this way. And again, remember to give yourself 1/4 inch at that edge. That way we can use it in our table topper. So in all of the cuts, this part of the ruler is down at the edge of the fabric, whichever direction you're cutting. I'm leaving myself 1/4 inch. And if you using your mat, this one happens to have 1/4 inch markings on it, so I can actually make sure that my ruler is straight by lining the center line up with a 1/4 inch mark. So I can see that I have to come over a little bit more to give myself a 1/4 inch on that other end. All right, so this part here is for the table topper. I have one more cut to do this way. Did it go all the way through? Yep, yay. This is table topper. This is table runner. No, this is table runner. And this next piece is going to be table topper. So you can see that 60 inches went by the wayside pretty quickly. You're like, wow, she's not going to end up with 60 inches with that. I will. All right, table topper. So now when I open this up, look at how cute that is. All right, so there's my table runner. My table topper is going to be the ones that are left. I'm going to put these over here. I'll begin to sew these in a minute. This is my table topper. So these are the ones that are the partials. Here's this. This is going to get sewn to this. This is going to get sewn to this. This can go here. And then this can go there. So there's my table topper. Now I had extra fabric. If I wanted to, I wouldn't have to use these ones that were halves. I could actually just recut, but I'm going to go ahead and just use those as is. So I am done cutting and I'm going to move over to the sewing part of it. I'm going to just put a pause on here for a moment so I can move to the machine. All right. Got to get some of my mess out of the way here so I can move you guys over too. Do you ever find that no matter how much space you have, it's just not quite enough? It's like just shy of being spacey. All right. So again, I'm using Tootie. Am I using Tootie or confetti? It's kind of an off-white, but it almost looks, it's Tootie. I was gonna say it almost looks variegated, but I don't think, well, maybe it is. It does kind of look variegated. All right, it's just kind of a beige color. And I am using my J-foot because the Luminaire and the Solaris both, and actually any Brother Baby Lock machine for that matter, has a special setting in the machine settings that allow you to create a perfect 1/4 inch seam without using a 1/4 inch foot. And I like that. So let me get my first piece here and I'm going to pin a couple of these together. So and when I pin, I'm going to pin matching my stripes and plaids and everything. And then this, when you cut with an angle like that, you have fabric that's been cut on the bias. So it is going to be a little wiggly and it's going to want to stretch on you. So be really careful when you pin them together. so that you don't stretch your fabric out. So a lot of times too, what I'll do is if I have a lot of different points that all have to match together, sometimes I'll go in and sew a few stitches in a couple of the places that really have to match and then work the rest of it in. So like on this green here, I'm going to do that so that I can see. So special setting on the machine, if you want to see where it's at, is in your, so your J foot. Here's why I love my J foot better than using a 1/4 inch foot. If you love your 1/4 inch foot, just totally disregard this public service announcement. My J foot has contact with feed dogs all the way the length of the feed dogs. All right, so if I take my J foot off, my J foot has contact with the feed dogs all the way along here because the both sides of the foot is longer than. If I put my 1/4 inch foot on, I have contact back here, but then I have those two little toes in the front of my J foot, and they're not on feed dogs. So to me, my fabric begins to kind of wiggle a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and use the built-in setting for the J foot for a 1/4 inch seam, and I'll show you what that is. So in both, let's close this here. And it's the same on any Baby Lock or Brother machine. The stitch number might be different, but it's the same. It'll still have a letter P in front of it. All right, so on category number 1, if I come down to stitch number 1-30, you'll see a P. So this is piecing 1/4 inch. This is piecing center needle position. This is piecing, and it'll give you a 1/2 inch seam. So I'm going to pick the first one. It's going to move it over to where my left-right shift is in 5.50. So not quite all the way right needle position, not all the way left needle position. It also shortens my stitch lengths to 2.0 for me, okay? The other place that I will find this is under section Q. Under section Q, you have it in the beginning. You have Q1, which is center needle position, Q2, which is right needle position, and Q3, which is left, meaning that the 1/4 inch. So if I pick that one, I still have 5.50, but here's what's different. If you're one of those that wants a scant 1/4 inch, in other words, you want it to be just a little bit less than a 1/4 inch, this will give you settings like 5.63, 5.75, 5.88. There's essentially about 60 needle stop positions in the Q section. Whereas if you were in the utility section prior, you would have 5.50, and then the next jump over would be 6. So you have 1, 2, 3 needle positions between 5.5 and 6 underneath the Q section. So I'm just going to go with what's under the Q section because it's the same. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this, where the green is right here, I want to make sure that that is what lines up. So I don't care about stopping and starting right now. I'm just going to sew this little tiny bit.
Michelle, which one did you say is the 1/4 inch? Is that the one where it's on the left?
It's on the right. It's going to be 5.50 to the right needle position. It's
Okay.
going to be either 1-29 in the utility stitches, or it's going to be Q-2 in the Q stitches. All right, and for this, I'm just going to use, I'm a foot control gal. You can use your start stop if you want, but for this, I'm a foot control gal. So I'm just going to make a few stitches, and I'm going to just go all the way. If I use the edge of my J foot, then it's a perfect 1/4 inch seam. I'm just going slow. I want to make sure that I catch that part. And then I'm just going to cut after I get a little bit beyond it, because I just want to make sure that that matched up. That's important, that that matches. And look at that. That matches. So now I'm going to go on to the next point. So if it really matters and you're worried about your fabric shifting and stuff, just do sections, and then you can actually join the whole thing. I've been doing this in garment sewing and bag making for years and years and years, and it's no different here. Where it really has to match, I match that first, and then I'll sew the rest of it. All right, so let's look at that stripe. Stripes are funny. They got to be right, ladies? Look at how perfect that is. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting the places like the that really, really, really have to match first. Because if they don't match, I won't like them, and you won't like them either. If I don't like them, I know you won't like them. All right, so let's see how I did on my stripes. So there's the last one, and that's a perfect match. So now I can just go back and sew the whole thing. If I have an extra row of stitching right over where it needs to match, not a big deal. I'm still sewing at 1/4 inch when I press it, which leads me to think I should turn the iron back on. If it really needs to match, I make sure that that part matches before I go on. And there's lots of other tricks you can use. You can use fabric glue and glue baste your seams. That works really well too. Not so much probably in quilting because it's kind of extra glue there on the seams you may not want. But sometimes in bag making, I'll staple my seams together because it's usually thick fabric and it's usually vinyl and that kind of stuff. So I just use a staple in between the seam allowance and you don't even see it. I pull it out afterwards. It holds everything nice and tight. All right. So I've got my first wedge on one side. So I'm going to take this over to the table and I'm going to press this. Got to make sure I keep all the pieces that I need together here. All right, so I'm just going to press. And in the directions, it says, go ahead and press one side of the table runner with the seams pressed towards the triangles and the other side of the table runner with the seams pressed towards away from the triangle. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring you guys over here so you can see this. This is what I love when it's done. I love it when it does that. And those little seams there where it needs to match are all perfect. All right, so now I'm going to take the other triangle that needs to go on the side here. And I'm going to put that one on. And you're going to have 2 triangles that for each side that will work. So if I pull this over here, here's my other side. So on both of these, oops, that one won't work. That's for my table runner. See, my scarecrow was upside down. This one will work. All right, so here's the other one. So I can look at this and go, do I want that one there? Or do I want this one here? Since that is exactly the same scarecrow side by side there, I think I'm going to go with this one. But you have a choice. You can do either one. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to pin where it needs to match. So I'm going to just definitely arrange my stripe pieces so that they're right where they need to be, because those are the ones that are more important.
Hey, Michelle,
Yes.
your scarecrows are looking into the center of the table run.
Nope.
What
They're
if
looking
you
to the
wanted
outside.
them looking out at the people instead?
Oh, then you would just use the other direction. You would just, in other words, when I started, then where I started was so that this would be in the middle. This part here would be in the middle. And I made my cut that way. You would just turn your fabric the other way so that and have it that way. So you just turn it.
Thank you.
Michelle, I have a question about if my triangles are like 11, where do I cut it off? You said 19 or 20. What was the?
So what,
definition?
so I did not have full use of the whole mat underneath the camera. So if I want my table runner to be 60 inches when I'm done, then I'm going to measure out to the 60 inches and I'm going to cut off the 11 inches if my pattern is 11 inches tall, which this one is. So how much of the ruler did you use? Did you do it 11 inches? Did you
11.
do 8? You did 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So measure out 60.
Okay.
And then from that 60 minus 11.
Okay.
So however, I actually think I might have measured wrong because I didn't have a full table to work with, because I'm looking at this going, this is not going to be 60 inches wide. And every time I've done it until this point, it's been perfect. So I think it's because I was doing piecemeal with 10 here and 10 here and 10 here. I think I cut it 10 inches short on one end. But the math is whatever you want the table runner to be, take that number and then minus the height of one of your triangles. So if you cut your triangles 11 inches, then measure out 60 inches and cut off 11.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So yeah, I looked at that going, yeah, that's not going to be 60 inches. What did I do here? So with having the camera be a narrow view, I made a mistake because I was just working in sections of 10 inches on the mat. And I know I missed 10 inches somewhere. That's pretty obvious. All right. So this needs to match. So I'm going to put my little foot down there and give it a few stitches. You know what this also prevents? I'm going to check it before I go on. This also prevents that if you didn't get it right, you don't have to rip out the whole seam. You just have to rip out a few stitches, right? Much better than ripping out the whole thing, right? Oh, yeah, buddy. We like it when that happens, don't we, ladies? Well, I do. Okay, I'm going to finish it up. So this is 1/2 of my table runner. So what you want to do is take your centerpiece and put one triangle on each side, and that becomes 1/2. So I'll give you all a really good laugh because I know some of you like quilt like crazy. I have been sewing most of my life. I started when I was like 8 years old. I used to do garment sewing, like we're talking couture garments, coats, jackets, inner lining, welt pockets, bound buttonholes, the whole 9 yards, right? So putting corners together doesn't faze me one way or the other because I've done it all my life. So when I went to put this together, remember I said I did it intuitively instead of reading the directions? And Jeannie's like, why are you doing that? It's so hard to sew those wedges together. I'm like, because I'm used to doing it that way. It's really much easier if you do it the way the directions say and put a triangle on each end, then you just have a straight seam down the middle. But I have no fear of 45-degree angle seams. So I'm doing a press. And again, of this side, I'm pressing the seam towards my triangle. On the other side of the table runner, I'm going to press it away from my triangles towards the body of the table runner. Man, oh man, you just gotta love stripes. Look at how fun this is gonna be, ladies. Look at that. How fun is that? I love stripes. But you know what I still don't like, no matter what? I still don't like matching plaids. I still avoid them like the plague.
Somehow it still seems as though your one end is, your scarecrows are going the wrong way. I don't know, maybe it's just the camera
Nope.
angle.
Nope, look at. All my scarecrows are going the same way around. They're all pointing that way. Does it still look like they're going different directions? Because this is going to come to a point. It's a triangle.
Yes, but
So
I
they're
thought
still-
that, I guess what I'm confused with is I thought that your pumpkins were going to be in the middle.
They are. This is the other side. So when I sew that together, I'll have
But when
pumpkins.
But when I'm,
pumpkins
I
Okay.
guess what I'm confused with is
Oh,
that
you
when-
thought my pumpkins were going to be in the middle here?
no, I
Uh-huh.
thought that I don't know. It just seems like the way it's sewn, if I'm sitting eating dinner like you are, I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at the pumpkins. I
Oh,
guess I
you're-
thought their pumpkin heads would be towards the center, not
Yeah.
their feet towards the center.
Yeah. And you can, and that's what Cheryl asked.
Yeah.
That was the same question that Cheryl asked. So, my view was this way. This is what I wanted, but on yours, you do what you want. So the only thing I would have had to have done with everything would have been cut the same. The only thing that I would have done is I would have turned it the other way so that when I started my cuts, my fabric was this way. I
Right.
started with the bottoms up. If I
I-
wanted it the other way, all I had to do is start my cuts this way. And then again, bottom up. And then I would have had the scarecrows going in the other direction.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
It just
so-
seemed it just seemed backwards, but I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah, no, I saw, this is what I envisioned.
But when
was
we
like-
when
so
we
I could put,
started,
like-
I thought that it was just gonna
Oh.
be the pumpkins to pumpkins. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, no,
right, thank you.
You get to pick. Yeah, no, you get to pick. That's what's so cool about this project actually, is really and truly, I know for me, sometimes I really overthink things. And then other times it's like, okay, now I've got it. What do I want out of it? So this is one of those that you get to pick exactly what you want. Once you get through the first one, you're like, oh, I could have done it this other way. But so to me, I usually put a row of candles down the center of the table. So I have the scarecrows that are going out from the candles. The candles are in the middle, the scarecrows are pointing the other direction. But if you're looking at table settings or you're looking at what somebody else might be seeing or the guest that's sitting at the table, then yeah, you're right. You probably would want them going the other way. But there's only 2 at our house for Thanksgiving, so that's we don't do the whole table thing too much anymore. So I usually put candles or I'll get some greenery or something, and then so that for me, I want the scarecrows pointing the direction that they are. But if you want them the other way, then just the same thing would apply. It's just that you would rotate your fabric 90 degrees, cut the other direction. Oh, that one's a little off.
Right.
So better to only have to snip a couple of stitches than to have to take the whole seam out. Probably my pinning. All right, let's try it again. Oh, all right, so on this row, I'm going to press the seam allowance towards the body of the table runner, not the triangles. Hey, ladies, give me a minute. I just nicked my hand on the open rotary cutter, so I need to grab a Band-Aid. Yep. Oh, boy. I need to fix the toilet anyway. Don't touch it. No. Right through it. Put pressure on it. Well, I don't have a choice. I gotta keep going. Pinch it. Make the tip of the finger blue. I like blue. You know, I thought about bringing one this morning because I'm split on the other finger and I forgot. That's the top. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So if you guys ever cut your finger in the store, you want Dana to wrap it for you. So you don't bleed out. So this is my fault. I left the rotary cutter open. I own this one. Never do that. That's not a good thing. Thank you. Thanks so much. Somebody else can always wrap it tighter than you can, right? All right, I'm gonna sew with one finger up in the air because I don't want to get any blood on this. Wrong one, wrong piece. Oh, this is the right piece. So do you ever have those weeks, you know, where it's just like everything seems to go wrong? I came in the other morning and I've had one of those weeks that's just been one kind of, you have to laugh. You just have to laugh because it's just, so I went to make oatmeal the other morning in the microwave and it boiled over and made a big puddle in the microwave. So I cleaned it all up and then put another bowl of oatmeal in there, and I'll be doggone if I didn't do the same thing again. So then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to play it safe and I'll just have a bowl of cereal instead. So I did the bowl of cereal, poured my coffee, got in the car, started to drive. Didn't have the top on the coffee cup all the way, spilled coffee all over myself. I had to go back home and change clothes and start again. Some days, right, ladies? All right, so I'm going to start at this side over here. I think it's the A1 staff week because Patrick stabbed himself with a box cutter yesterday and had to go to the urgent care. Thank you so much. You think of everything. Thank you. You're the bestest. And it just brought me a rubber glove to put on just in case I begin to exsanguinate, as she put it.
And that, Michelle, is why we carry workers' comp insurance at work.
Yeah, it's just, it's crazy. Some,
Yep.
you know, you can just go along and it's just like, I don't want to say it's bad karma because the kind of stuff happens to everybody, you know, but it's like, have you ever noticed how it just all happens in the same week? You're just like going along, just doing life, everything lucky, and then all of a sudden, blah, everything goes sideways.
So I was telling Patrick when I was there on Saturday, somehow this topic came up, and that's before he stabbed himself with a box cutter. I went into urgent care after slicing my finger with a brand new knife. Went back 2 days later because I had sliced the other finger with the same knife, and doctor's looking at me, same doctor, right? And he's looking at me and he's like, how did you do that? I thought you were left-handed because I cut my right finger. And I said, no, I'm ambidextrous. So you had, you know, I couldn't do that. So I used the other hand. That knife went in the trash when less than 3 days later, I cut myself a third time. Same knife. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it's not our fault. It's the knives are cursed.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll buy that.
Go with that? Yeah.
So we used to have, when my husband was still working at the VA hospital, we used to have these giant dinners for Christmas Eve and for Thanksgiving. Mainly because there's always, anytime you work in a hospital, there's always a large amount of residents that get stuck working the holidays, and they don't have, or they are here doing their residency. They don't live in the area. And so we'd always have an ongoing, people going in and out. All right, so I'm pinning this together now. So I'm gonna match my seams. One is towards the triangle, and the other is on the other side is towards the body of the quilt, or the table topper, or the runner, or whatever we're calling it. And then I'm going to do the same thing going down that side, because I still have those things I have to match. So I'm going to just make sure this matches, and then I'll do those, and I'll do a section at a time. So anyway, we always had a revolving door at the holidays where, the residents could come in and they could eat. They're on call. They just sat down, and, they'd get called back into the hospital. Somebody else would show up to take their place. It was just always a lot of fun. So anyway, remember, as our own personal friends, we have had, a lot of the doctors that he worked with over the years, but also a lot of my friends are in law enforcement. So we always had a nice group of people. Anyway, one year I was doing dishes, and everybody does this, I think, once in their life on a holiday, is you reach in the soapy water to grab a wine glass, and you go to wash it, and all of a sudden the water's turning red, and you still haven't figured out quite yet what happened. And it's because the glass broke and you cut yourself. So never do that when you have a vascular surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, an OR nurse, and a sheriff with a gun. Because they're all going to come and try to help fix it. And like between one of them squeezing it and the other one saying that they thought that it needed stitches and the other one going something else, I'm like, I kept looking at Bill going, will you just shoot me? I mean, if they don't stop, will you just shoot me? So always fun, good times though. My husband used to work in surgery, so as a anesthesia tech. All right, here's my first match. Ooh, looking sweet. Let me go back. Now I'm actually, this one's a little bit, well, yeah, I'm matching, no, it's not any different, I guess. They are all cut on the bias of the fabric, I guess. So this becomes just a little bit easier because you're just sewing a straight line. Let's see how I'm doing so far. All right, so that one passed. This one passes. That one passes. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have that little brown stripe down the middle too, ladies. That one definitely passes. All right, let me get that sewn halfway across. And then I will do the same thing on the other end. I'm not going to share until I'm done here because you guys are going to like my fussy cutting. All right. One last one. And then I think what I'm going to go ahead and press this final seam open. All right, let me get this pressed.
You have 8 by 12. You have.
You're using steam?
I do. I'll tell you why too. This is not an heirloom quilt. So when I learned to sew, my teacher said, is it couture or is it costume? So if it's couture, then it's an heirloom quilt. And no, I do not use steam because it does stretch the fabric. If it's costume, meaning it's going to be a table runner that's going to get tossed into the washing machine over and over and over again, I don't worry about it. What I want is a nice, really flat seam, because look at that nice little brown line from each side of the fabric right down the middle there.
Hi, Michelle, this is Karen. I have a question.
Hi, Karen.
Hi. I am like death warmed over sick. So
Oh,
that's why my camera's not on. I'm sparing you all. Anyway,
but how's the audio?
yeah, great. On the formula for the length is
Yeah.
if I want a 50-inch, I measure 50 inches and then take minus the 8.5.
Minus 8. Minus 8.
Oh,
I'm
8.
just going by the pattern instruction. So if you look in the
I don't
pat-
see that in the pattern instructions.
all right, let me see. It's right. I had highlighted it. So it was in a very obscure place.
Yeah.
All right. To make your table runner a specific length, for example, the center section of a 54-inch table runner made from an 8-inch stripe would be cut 46 inches. In other words, 54 minus the 8, because of the 8, equals 46. The completed table runner will measure approximately 16 inches wide by 54 inches. So it's on, I don't even know what page this is because mine doesn't have numbers on it, but it's on the
I
page.
see it.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that, so I'm assuming that I made an error because I didn't actually work with a measure that goes the whole entire 60 inches. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that formula is the same of just doing 8 inches, but I don't know if that doesn't make sense to me either. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
I cut mine because I wanted 50. So I cut it. Actually, I didn't do the 8, I did 8.5. So I cut it at 41.5. And it's like only inches long.
Oh, so what we're thinking then that this is a pattern misprint? Because that's certainly what it says there. And that's
Right.
what I followed. But when I did the table runner, so when I did the other table runner without looking at the directions, and I did it intuitively, I didn't cut anything off. So
Right. That's I'm thinking that's probably what would be better.
but you can still make it work by just doing a split down the center and adding fabric down the back down the middle.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, good to know. I'm going to put some notes in here. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say so. I didn't like that when I did the first one. I'm an intuitive stitcher. I do per use directions when necessary if it's something that I've never done before. But with this, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use the entire length and put my triangles back on. And that's what I did. And everything seemed to be fine. All right. All right, ladies, check out that fussy cutting. I still have that little teeny tiny stripe down the middle. That teeny tiny stripe of brown. All right, so all my corners, all my points match. This is my my table runner, which is not a table runner. It's a little bit short for that, but I'm still happy with it. All right, I like my scarecrows going the direction that they are. I'm going to put candles. This is going to be on top of my table. I'm going to put a tray of candles here. If you want yours going the other way, that's fine. So when I put my fabric out to cut it and I started, remember, bottoms up is the first cut. The bottom of the ruler is up. Flip your fabric the other way and it's going to rotate the pattern itself around. It's not going to change anything. It's still going to be pumpkins, scarecrows, pumpkins, but everything would be facing the other direction. But I'm good with how this is right now, the way it is. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and I'm going to go ahead and do the table topper, which is the squares or the triangles that we didn't use. So I'm a glutton for matching stripes. I'm a glutton for punishment for matching the stripes because now I have to match them all the way around in a. And I am going to use these guys, my half ones as well, because I don't have any other big ones. I meant to use these for this. And so for this one, a table runner, this may not be the best print for that, or for the table topper, because when you look at this, I've got scarecrows that are like part of a scarecrow. So I don't know if this would be something that I was pick if I knew that the table topper was an integral part of it. So I've got to do these sides together. And I'm just going to do this really quickly so that we can actually, I can show you how to do the back. Now, a couple of you called and asked if you could use regular batting. And I did use regular batting in the first one. And then I went ahead and used fusible fleece like the pattern recommended. And I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of anything that's fusible like that usually. But in this case, I was a tremendous fan of it because it made the finishing much, much faster. Now, again, is it couture or is it costume? If it's something that's going to go in the washing machine all the time, like after every time somebody uses it, I probably would be okay with doing fusible fleece. I happen to have a lot of batting at home, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do as well. And if you want to do it using some kind of fusible where you fuse your regular batting to the backing, that's fine too. If you just want to pin and do it in how you normally quilt, that's fine too. I'm like the person you'll find that has the least amount of rules in any situation.
So Michelle, I'm confused. What you're doing right now is you've got straight edges instead of angles.
Yes. You know why? Because these were my edges. Remember bottom up? So this was the end on both sides. So if I want enough triangles to actually make a table topper, then I have to utilize these, which means I have to sew them together so that I end up with that other triangle that I need to fill in. Because right now I only have 4 triangles.
Got it. Okay. And you need 8, right? It's an octagon.
Yeah, 4. I have 4. I need 6. So there's 3 on each side.
Oh, then it's hexagon. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for telling me what it was, because I completely spaced that word. So in all honesty, when I did the cats, I did the Halloween one. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to use these. I'll just get a little bit more fabric. And I think it really wasn't that much more fabric. It was enough to do one wedge, because there's 2 sides to it. So it really wasn't that much more. And then I could use just full pieces. And I really, truly did like that much better. But I'm going to just kind of pop over here and stitch these really quick. Sorry about that. Normally I pause the camera, so you don't need Dramamine. All right. So my stripes are kind of in a little bit different position on this. Hopefully that'll make it easier and faster. So on the backing, here's how I would have done it. And you do what you do, okay? Because all of you are very creative and you all do things your way, and they're all amazing when you bring in show and tell. So the pattern just has you fuse the fusible fleece to the wrong side of your backing fabric. And then it has you just kind of rough cut the backing fabric to fit the front. And then it has you sew right sides together, leaving an edge open so that you can turn it right side out, press it, and then top stitch around the edges. And that's great if that's, and that works fine. That's how I'm going to do it, because that's how the directions are. But if I would have been left to my own devices, I would have said, you know what, I can just why do I want to make myself turn this inside out? I can actually, just quilt the top piece down the piecing seams and lay it on top of the batting and just bind it. I love binding. Binding's like one of my favorite things to do, which is kind of odd for someone that really doesn't quilt very often, but binding I think is quite cathartic. So I always enjoy it. So I don't mind it. So for me, I would have actually probably chosen binding. So if you chose to do that, that's okay. You don't have to follow my directions. But I'm going to go ahead and do what the pattern says. Oh, and I had a pattern I wanted to show you too. Jeannie just got this in. So if you find that triangles are your jam, Look at this one. Now I have to tell you, the finished size on this is 70 by 81. It uses 8 different shades of fabric. It's a half, I think it's a half a yard of 8 fabrics, minimum of 40-inch width. So you know that there's a whole lot of piecing going to go on in this, but look at how fun that looks. But now this, the actual shape of this, you could still do with your equilateral triangle. It's just using that ruler and using the entire 12-inch that you have available. So and then if you looked at the directions, so I have a copy of the old directions, which and old is not old, it's really the same pattern, but she wrote it originally about 10 years ago. And of course, you know, in 10 years, so much changes in our industry that she redid this, and it's much prettier. The pictures are much prettier. But what changed is the amount of well, I call it triangle play, because there's just so many different ways you can configure these triangles and come out with something totally different every single time. And, you know, you don't even really have to do it with border fabric if you don't want to. I mean, border fabric, I think this is a great holiday project because it kind of gives you, if you wanted to, it kind of gives you a nice holiday, fresh look to your holiday table, and without a whole lot of muss and fuss when you're probably making gifts for other people or making other stuff. All right, I'm just going to press these seams open, and then I'm coming back with the other ones. All right, so if you're new to quilting and you're new to all this stuff, and you're new to binding and stuff, I did do a couple of different Technique Tuesday videos for binding. One is just straight binding, where nothing that you're binding has curves. So if you're just going around a square or rectangle quilt, you don't need to cut your binding on the bias. You can just use straight binding because there's no curves. The binding doesn't have to curve. If you are going around a curve, then that requires that the binding be cut on the bias. And I did 2 different tutorials, 2 different Technique Tuesdays on doing binding. It's true, and I don't do my binding by hand. So if you're a hand binder, just la 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 la, don't look, because that's not me. But if you want to do it and use some of the features on your machine, like I use monofilament thread, I use a specific blanket stitch that I have that I save the actual settings of the blanket stitch, and I do it by machine. Then check out the tutorials. Then if you decide you want to do that for this, guess what? One of the tutorials, the straight binding, I actually do show you how to do a point like that triangle, and how to form the binding over that. All right, so I have 2 of these. See, that's why I wouldn't have, if I had enough fabric, I would not. I mean, this will be matching, but I don't like this. But I don't have any more of this fabric left, so I'm going to use what I have. So I'm going to put 3 pieces together and then sew straight down the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and make this be the one that's the center. So I'm going to get this pinned. I love it when stripes come together. I really do. I think that's what drew me to this fabric more than anything, was the fact that it had all these stripes in it and all these different things you can match up. So Gwen, is it kitten season yet? I noticed the puppies started showing up at the Humane Society.
No, we're about done. It'll start again. They're usually born March, April, and we have them up for adoption June, July.
Yeah,
I just adopted out my last 2 last week.
did ya?
Yep. And then I got two that I think are coming back tomorrow. I'm gonna try to work with him. He just realized that he travels too much.
Oh, that's hard on a little one.
Yeah,
Hard on
and
kittens.
fortunately he adopted 2, so, they're not by themselves, but,
Still hard.
yeah, it is.
Did you see those 2 Caucasian Shepherd puppies?
No.
Oh my gosh, you have to go to the Nevada Humane Society's site. John and I are kind of thinking about getting a puppy.
Okay.
But we don't know what we want yet. And, so we're just kind of looking, and I had no idea, but they were there. They were part of that. They were part of that rescue that was like in a hoarder situation.
Here in Reno or?
Out of Vegas.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I guess there was something like 300 dogs or so, 300 puppies or something.
Oh
But,
my God.
most of them ended up going originally to Ohio, and then some of them trickled back to Nevada.
Yeah.
But if you saw this puppy's face, you're like, oh my God, that face. So
What was the name? What did they call him?
A Caucasian Shepherd. So I didn't hear that part. I just saw the face and I saw Shepherd, and it's a female, and I'm like, okay, John, we should go look at this. So he's like, okay, we'll look up Caucasian Shepherd.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it grows to like 150 pounds. It's huge.
You sure you want to do that?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
That's why we're trying to be responsible here of what we can actually, accommodate. But it sure had a cute face.
We're out here and it's really rural where we are, but we've
lost the video.
Oh yeah, we did.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me know.
Here in our little rural area of Gardnerville, we've had 3 rather large hoarding situations, one of which was there's a really nice mobile home park here that's called Aspen Park, and it's really, really nice. It's well kept. And they pulled 161 cats and kittens out of one mobile home.
Oh my God, how can you have that many cats?
160, yeah.
And have the neighbors not know?
Well, I guess the people that did know didn't say anything until it got to the point where it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so it was really sad because 130 of them had to be euthanized. They were so sick.
Yeah.
That even dog, we've got a decent amount of money in the bank as a nonprofit, but we don't have that much,
Yeah.
And it's really sad because, these people, they think they're doing the right thing, and it's kind of an illness, it's like when you hoard stuff, only with animals, there are lives at stake. So
yeah, so it is sad.
We just lost your video again.
Yeah.
There he is.
Because I was spinning around. I try to be mindful to not take you with me when I do the spin, because that way
you don't want us to get seasick.
I don't want you guys to get woozy or anything, so I try not to have you do the spin. All right. So I'm just pressing towards the wedge, towards the triangle. The seam allowance. And the same over here. So neither one of us has had a dog for like about 33 years, but we just thought, okay, well, we can do this now. He's retired and we don't have anybody else around. So no, we can do this, but we have been sitting down trying to decide what would be a good fit for us, for the dog, really. I mean, I don't want to bring in anything that I told him, I said, you can't get anything that's friskier than I am. Because, it's like, I love Momo to death, but I could never keep up with Momo.
The one thing with Momo for me, well, I guess it's just a genie thing, is like, I do not let animals kiss me in the face, especially in the mouth. And it's like, when she does that, I'm like, oh my
Oh, I
God,
love
that's
it.
so gross.
I do the same thing though with him. I love it.
Do you?
I love it.
Oh,
But you know what? I used to do that with my horse too. So, and I'm still here to tell the tale. So I guess it wasn't that bad, but I used to do that, with I used to that. And then when my daughter was little, it's like, yeah, let the dog slobber on her. It's okay. Nobody ever died of dog slobber, So, I mean, I tried to keep it away, but I'd be in there and all of a sudden I'm hearing, what is all that racket in the bathroom? And I go in there and both of them are in the bathtub. It's like, well, it happens. Like I said, ladies, I got the least amount of rules of anybody. All right, so who's cooking a big Thanksgiving? I gotta know, just in case I need a place to go. No.
not me.
Yeah, well, John and I are kind of looking forward to it. We cooked Thanksgiving, a traditional Thanksgiving last year, and we had our neighbors over from across the street, but this year they're going. So I'm like, you know what? I don't really like turkey. Can we just make ravioli? So that's what we're gonna do. All right, I'm pausing the camera so that I can actually move you to the sewing machine without Dramamine. All right, here we go.
So Michelle, are you going to be posting the link to this?
Yes.
Okay, because I missed a very specific part early on, and so I
Yeah.
haven't been sewing. I got to catch up.
Yeah, that's okay. I think,
Okay.
for me, when I watch things like this, I'm like a lot of you. I do a lot of YouTube videos and I watch a lot of stuff later because I can pause it and rewind it and pause it and go back as many times as I need to make sure I'm clear on something. So yeah, I figured most of you, we had a big class so that, I figured most of you would probably be checking it out again later. So.
Well, the border print that I decided to use for that actually runs the other way.
Does it?
It runs the width. And so I'm like,
Oh.
I really got lost when it came trying to figure out how I'd make the length work. So,
Well,
okay, I'm just going to
it,
wait until the recording and then
Yeah.
and then do it.
and if you still can't figure it out, just hop by the store. We'll help you with it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm having fun with this today. So I think that maybe I might start playing around with triangles, ladies. I don't know. I'm not used to not having my multi-function foot control. I'm so used to using that, then I don't have to do this with the cut. I have the sidecar is set up to be my cut. So I don't ever have to take my hands off the bed of the sewing machine. So when I sew down here, it's like, this is weird. Where's my foot control? So I was one of the ones that was really excited when I saw that in the upgrade, because I've had it since brother launched it the first time with the 6200 series about 8 or 9 years ago. And now that, so if you've never sewn with a multifunction foot control, it's like having the third hand you always wished you had when you're trying to do really specific things. So if I'm doing stuff like this, so with a multifunction foot control, you can assign different functions to the heel kick or the back of the foot control, the main foot control. And you can assign something else to the little side foot control, and you can put it on either side. I don't sew two-footed, so I have it on the right because it's easy for me to just kind of swing my foot over to the right and press on it. But so how I have mine set up is if you are using the if you're using the stitch priority feature on your machine, meaning that the machine, with a stitch you start with is the stitch you stop with, whether it's a back stitch or a stitch in place, then you know that by touching your back stitch, that's what activates that when you're stitching, so that whatever it is, the machine does the back stitch or the stitch in place by itself, ties off, and then cuts. And then sometimes you can turn the cut part off. Well, with the multifunction foot control, you can put that on the heel kick of the foot control. And then if you don't want to cut, you can turn the cut feature off and then cut when you want using the other foot control. That's the sidecar. So, and the one that's out now is much more streamlined than the other one and much more responsive. The actions are quicker on it. So
doesn't that come with the third upgrade?
yes, it does.
Yeah, so I don't have that yet.
I guess I was just a little bit concerned, a little bit kind of blown away that a lot of the ladies said, well, I'll never use that. And I'm like, have you ever used one before? No. Well, how do you know you wouldn't use it if you knew how it worked? Because I really can't, if I have to sew a lot, I really can't. I bring mine from home. And I have the one that I had before that still works, that I think I'm going to bring down here and leave down here just so I can show people how it works. Because
was that the standard foot that came with the Dream 2?
yes.
Okay, because I just bought a used Dream 2 and I haven't used it yet.
Okay. So you can start getting yourself used to it and then you'll be really appreciative of the other one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So see, this is me, ladies. I don't know. Maybe you'd be okay with it. And maybe the print makes a big difference, but I don't like this because of it being cut in half. I would rather have a whole triangle, but I didn't have enough fabric left to do that. So c'est la vie.
Hey, Michelle, how do you
Yes.
program that new foot?
It's in the foot control. It's a foot control. It's in the machine settings. And then you'll have a little, I mean, there's several different functions that you can assign to it. You can assign like one stitch. So if you like to maybe advance by one stitch, you can assign it to just do one stitch. You can assign it to do needle up, needle down. You can assign it to back stitch. You can assign it to cut. And the same with the other ones. You can assign it to several different things. So.
And where is that?
It's in the machine settings screen. I'm not looking at the machine right now. So just scroll through the pages and you'll see it in the machine settings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
You know, Michelle, I must have a very old pattern. I've had this pattern for many years. And it doesn't look like yours. And mine shows that you start with the big end down first, and you're reversing that.
Well, this is the topper. There's 3 and 3. There's no big end. They're both the same size.
No. I'm talking about the ruler. I'm sorry.
Oh,
When they put the ruler, you say
well,
you say
but
the bottom on top.
No, let me, bottoms up is just it was just so that I could remember how I started. So I'm going to show you the picture. And you're right, in the older pattern, it's not. Okay.
Yeah, that's my picture.
This is the picture.
Yeah.
This is not the pointy end of the ruler. This is the bottom, the straight edge of the ruler. So it's like, I just say that like bottoms up, this part, the long part being the bottom up. So that was just something so that I could remember which way to cut.
But see, it's just the opposite.
No, when I set it down, let me get a straight piece of fabric now.
No.
This is the bottom. I'm calling this the bottom of the ruler.
Right.
All right. So when I start this first cut here, It's bottoms up. It's a bottom here, bottom here, bottom here. So what you're saying is, yeah, I guess you could look at it that way.
Yeah.
I just look at, well, so whatever, however it makes sense in your mind. Because to me, if I did top up, I would be at the edge going, okay, which part does this, because I would be tempted to put this part, this line here, against the straight edge of the fabric.
I got it.
And that's not going to work.
Okay.
Yeah. So isn't it wonderful? We all see things a little bit differently. I love that. Yeah. Great conversation when we see things differently. So I always, I try to memorize things like bottoms up, meaning every time I start with it to do this, I'm going to start with the bottom of the ruler on the up. But really and truly, Joanne is right. It really is the other way. So if you think of it the other way makes more sense to you, then do it that way.
I didn't do this pattern for years because I got so confused. So that's why I got excited when I saw you doing this.
So are you any less confused?
No, in fact, I finally got my mirror image right.
Oh, good. Yeah, I guess, so here's the thing. I guess it didn't bother me because I didn't know that it should. Does that make any sense? You know, it's like I didn't have any preconceived notion. I've never seen the pattern before. And I thought, okay, well, I can work with this. It's just, it's shapes, you know, I work with shapes all the time. So whatever makes it make sense to you. All right, I'm going to sew this last seam, and then I'm going to do the backing on one of these.
Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and sign off since I'm not
Okay.
sewing along with you anyway. You're
right.
you're going to let us know when you post the video.
Yeah, the video is going to take, so let me explain to you ladies on videos on getting posted, okay? Because I think that some of you have no idea what's involved. Okay, so it will take a 3-hour video, roughly about 40 minutes to process on
Yep.
Zoom before I can even download it, which is going to take another at least 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then I have to upload it to both YouTube. Well, actually, it's just YouTube because there's no Facebook group for this. So that, you know, so it's like not instantaneous. So it's going to be, it probably will be somewhere around 5:15, 5:30 tonight before it gets posted. So fear not, ladies, it'll be there.
Okay, but you'll send us a link to it because like
So what
I don't
happens?
use YouTube ever.
Okay, well, that's the only place where it's going to go. So
Okay.
with YouTube, what it does is when I add you to that, because it's a private video, because you know,
Yep.
I will add your names to it. Oh, actually, no, it's a public video because it's a free sew along. So I will add your names, and then I will just I'll send you an email off the same email I've been sending. So whatever you signed up for class is what you're going to get where you're going to get the email at.
Okay.
That the video's been posted with a link to the video.
All right. And I just looked up that dog. That is a lot of dog.
That's a lot of dog, but isn't it cute?
I didn't expect to see a long-haired dog though. When I was thinking shepherd, I was thinking
Yeah.
German shepherd. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
A
thought.
lot of dog, Michelle.
And then when they had it on the news in the morning, it's like 10 weeks old. It weighs 25 pounds.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then they said also too, the Humane Society said that they had a line around the building when they got there in the morning. So hopefully both of them got really good homes. There was 2 of them. One was a brown, they're both females. One was brown. One was that really cute one with the cute little face.
Puppies always get adopted first.
Yeah, they really do. I don't always look at the Humane Society first. And I'm not trying to be an irresponsible pet person, but I truly don't have enough strength to handle a pit bull. And that's what a lot of them are, a pit mix.
And Michelle, that is exactly why with all the animal rescue that we do, that we bought our labs from a breeder.
Yeah, I
Because
don't necessarily-
everything that we in a shelter had pit in it, and I've had just too many negative experiences for me. I know they're great dogs for some people.
Yeah, I haven't had a negative experience. I just know that they're a really powerful dog and I don't
Yep.
have enough strength to
Right.
control. All right.
Yeah,
So
Me too. So, okay,
here's
I'll
my
see you
table
later.
cover. All right, bye. Here's my table topper. I'm going to press this out later. I'm going to use my, the other one to do my backing. So I'm going to grab, where did I put it? Here it is. All right, so I'm going to grab this and then I'm going to grab my backing. So I want to do a rough cut on my backing. I really like this fabric. I mean, this is fabric I would buy not just for the scarecrows. I really like it. All right, so let's see what I got here. I want a rough cut. Let's see if I can manage not to cut my other finger. So it's a rough cut. Rough cut means that you've got some excess, extra fabric around it. I'm gonna need this in a minute. Let's get all of this out of the way. All right, so I'm just going to use my scissors. If I have some scissors back here, yeah, I do. So I'm leaving about a half an inch or an inch on the other end there. And I'm just because I don't have a ruler that's completely the length here, I'm just going to cut this myself. 19 to 19. Let's see how straight I can get it. Not too bad. And then I'm going to make sure that I have some excess at the other end and make sure the iron is hot. It's about an inch over here. I do want to kind of keep it on grain if I can here. I want about an inch on the outside, so that's going to be right about here. And then I'm just going to rip, maybe. All right. It's going to get thrown away anyway, so. All right, so now I'm going to actually press this out and I'm going to attach some fusible fleece to the other side. You gotta love nice fabric that when you go to do a tear, it does a nice tear for you right on the, and it's not like a wedge halfway down the side of the fabric because it's printed so far off grain, or it's the warp and the weft is not even straight. All right. So let's get our fleece. Sorry. I am not. I'm still teaching a class.
Okay, then I'll wait.
Oh, I won't be done for a while.
That's okay.
Okay.
I got lost on the first. I listened all the way through on the rest of it.
Oh, okay.
Until I pulled in the parking lot, but I just need to trouble with this.
Okay. I can honestly say I would be cutting this much straighter if I was actually using a large table.
Well, they had like this crazy season.
Michelle, do you stitch in the ditch after you're all done just so that it stays together?
Yes,
Okay.
you can, which is why I do have my my digital dual feed walking foot here. But the whole stitch in the ditch thing is why I really prefer to do binding as opposed to sewing something together, turning it right side out and then stitching in the ditch. Because if you don't have a perfect fit, you have a pucker somewhere. You all know this as well as I do. So that's why this would not necessarily be my first choice of how to construct. I would, if I wanted to stitch in the ditch, I probably would do binding, but it comes out pretty good. It really does. With the digital dual feed foot, you've got some latitude, so it comes out pretty well, even if you're not perfect. So I have a ironing station the width of of this table at home. So it makes this kind of stuff much, much, much easier. And I have a big press. So things like fleece and SF-101, things like that, I can just do giant swaths of it at one time.
What temperature do you have your big press at?
Usually about 300. That's where I start.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have old grand puppies that love to come to your house.
You have what?
Old dogs.
Grand puppies, is that what you say?
Yes. They're
Is
not.
this Anna? Didn't you try to give me these dogs once before? Yeah, we're just we're looking. What kind of grand puppies do you have?
I think you need to come to Thanksgiving and we'll have all 5 of them there.
Oh, I bet that's nice. I get to see their table manners and everything, right? So I just got back from Disney with my friends, and I was really excited about going in October. So I told my husband, I'm like, okay, we need to take Maddie. Maddie's our granddaughter in Missouri. We need to take Maddie, and I want to take her next October because I want to take her on fall break, and so she can do the whole Disney October Halloween thing because we all like Halloween in our family. So I called my son. I'm like, I'm gonna take Maddie to Disney for fall break. He's like, it's great, except for Maddie doesn't get a fall break. So I'm like, okay. He's like, but she gets a spring break. So I just got back and I just booked a trip for the end of March. So this is why we're not doing anything with the puppy now, because I don't really want to get a puppy or a dog, especially a dog that's been displaced at the shelter or something that, you know, I don't want them to feel like they're being abandoned yet one more time. So
that's nice because
we're waiting. It's hard, you know, it's like it's like I've seen the dog with the sad face thing before. It's like they have feelings, they know. All right, let's see if I can make this happen. All right, I didn't do a really tight steam with this and a really tight stick. I just really want to hold it in place, not really fuse it permanently, because fusing it permanently is going to be the first thing that leads to my not being able to get puckers out when I go to, what is that? Okay. when I go to stitch in the ditch. All right, so right sides together. And I'm going to leave us an opening where I can turn this. And I'm going to leave the opening on one of my straight edges because that's going to be the easier one to navigate as opposed to trying to do it on a bias cut edge. So I'm just going to kind of put a few pins in here. And I am going to switch to my my digital dual feed walking foot to do this attaching. The other thing I like to do is one of the reasons why I really didn't fuse all the way was I'm going to put 2 pins where I want to remember to stop stitching. Is that I want to be able to trim the batting out of the seam allowance where I have to turn it. Because that kind of, when you have too much stuff going on there, it makes it really hard for you to get a straight seam there when you turn it, because you've got batting going on top of batting and everything else. So that kind of makes it just a little bit easier for you. All right. I am going to switch out to my digital. I'm not doing anything, ladies. I'm just changing the foot. That's it. And then I'll swing you guys around. And I'm also going to get the sole plate. That's the 1/4 inch sole plate for the digital dual feed walking foot, or the move it foot, as I always call it.
And then there's
When I first started working here, nobody knew what I was talking about when I said the move it foot. It was a brother baby lock foot. Baby lock calls it what it is, which is the digital dual feed walking foot. Brother educators called it the move it foot.
Hi, Michelle.
Yeah.
This is Melinda.
Hi, Melinda.
What plate did you just say you're going to get?
The 1/4 inch foot for the digital dual feed foot.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to show you in a minute what that looks like. So it depends on which when you bought your machine. They always, do different kind of deals. Both of them do, either brother or baby lock. So it depends on when you got your machine. But this is the 1/4 inch sole plate, and you can see it has like a little bar that goes down there. So in your center needle position, and you're going to put this this edge across the edge is going to give you a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So now instead of P2 or Q2, I'm going to go to Q1, which is center needle position. Same thing, stitch point 2.0 stitch length. Right. I'm going to kind of toss this back here. All right, so
hey, Michelle, in my connection, can they send the Disney designs?
No.
Or no.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Disney's always going to have that encryption on it.
Yeah, so those are excluded from my batch.
Just going to stitch in place a little bit. I'm not getting any movement with this, which is nice. This is belt driven, for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, meaning that the belt on the top of the foot rolls. Think of it like if you're a Star Wars fan like me, think of it as a BB-8 of the sewing world. It just rolls along and it guides the fabric. So now you have contact with the feed dogs, both top and bottom. So with the traditional walking foot, the feed dogs are walking, and then on the top, your foot's kind of going boink, 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 boink. So it's walking too, but it's bouncing, and it's at some point, it's not always on the fabric as it makes that step. This is always on the fabric. And that little belt behind there rolls. So with it being belt driven, that means that you can also control the feed of that belt. So if you feel like you're working on some fabric where one is the top is moving too fast or too slow, then you can always, I want to try to get that corner in there, then you can always adjust the drive on the belt.
How do you adjust the drive on that belt?
It's in the machine settings.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be really quickly. Let me look. It's on page 2 on the Solaris and the Luminaire. It says dual feed adjustment.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And then since I'm there, the adjusting the foot control is on page. I think you have to have the foot plugged in. So let's do machine settings. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have it plugged in, but I'm seeing some vacant space on one of the pages. So I think if it's plugged in, then I get it. Then I get the adjustment for it. Yeah. We tend to not take those things out of the box when we have our floor model because we lose them. All right, I'm coming up to the other end here.
Yeah, like-
And I'm
like-
gonna go a little bit further. I think I gave myself a rather generous opening here, and the bigger it is, the longer, you know, the more it takes me to get it all pressed out straight. So I think as long as I get my hand in there, I'll be good. All right. I pull all my pins out. And one of the things I show in a lot of my classes is how to trim the corners, because sometimes people just are unsure on how to do that. And if you want a really nicely pointy corner when you press out, there's a couple of things that you can do to ensure that that happens. One of them is not jabbing a point turner into the corner. And then the other one is when you trim, I'm going to try to get as close to this as I can.
You lost the feed though.
Yep, because I spun around. Give me a second. But thanks for reminding me. When I spin around, I go pretty fast, so I try not to make anybody sick. All right, so here's what I want to do and what I don't want to do. I'm going to just kind of come down really close on this. Where's my pen? Doesn't really matter what pen it is at this point. This is the back of it, but it'd be nice. Of course not. It's got to be here somewhere. I don't know where it's at. All right, Sharpie it is. It's on the back side anyway. All right, so when you clip a corner, you want to go all the way to, but not through the stitching. So you're essentially going to go really, really close to that stitching line, but not through it. What you don't want to do is go across and then go down and create a point here. Because when you do that, you're going to weaken the seam. And also as you go to push it out, you're going to end up with like a little, you know, it's like it's too pointy. So let me go ahead and get a straight edge here so I can trim this with the rotary cutter. All right, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to trim everything else off. Well, I can't really see a 1/4 inch with this one. Where's the other one? I can see through that one. Perfect. I can see through this one. All right, so I'm going to trim my 1/4 inch seam allowance. On both sides. This is actually a really nice ruler for other stuff besides triangles. You can see through it pretty well. All right, so there's my first one. All right, so when I trim that at the corner there, I'm going to go all the way to the stitching line, but not through the stitching line, on straight across. All right, so when I go down really close to that, oh, there it is. You can see where I did not cut through my stitching, but I'm right to my stitching. I am not going to go down the side because that's not going to give me a really sharp corner. What happens to get a sharp corner is in the process of turning this, you have those two sides that you now created that actually fit together to actually pad the back of your corner. If you go down the edge, you're always going to have vacant space in there. So let me get the rest of this trimmed. And I'm not doing anything special on the side that doesn't have the seam all the way through. I'm still just doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to do the same on all my corners. I'm going to trim up to the stitching line, but not through the stitching line, as close as I can get, like within a hair. Don't be bashful. Right, so here's where I'm gonna turn. Here's my hole. So I'm actually just gonna go in there and trim away just my my batting, just so that when I go to press it, I'm just gonna grate it a little bit so that it makes it easier for me to get a nice turn and grate and press over here. So I'm just making it just slightly smaller.
Can you expand your picture further away from, so we can see better? Yeah, thanks.
So you can see that I'm not going exactly a 1/4 inch. I'm just making it just a little bit less. It's a term called grading. I still want some back there, but I just want less so that when I go to actually turn this, then I don't have quite as much of the batting right behind it. Just makes it easier to get a nice flat seam in there. Got to pull a pin over here. All right, last edge. And then I'm going to do all my corners. And then I'm going to show you how to get that nice corner that you want. Because I know you want that nice corner. All right. You can do it with scissors too if you prefer. But I'm still doing the same thing. I'm going all the way up to the stitching line and just straight across. I'm not going down the sides, but right up to the stitching line. All right, just going to give everything a little press. And right where I'm going to turn it, I'm going to actually press the front side of the seam. So so that when I turn it, it turns where the rest of this turns. So I'm just gonna take it. I can see where my seam is there. Just use my fingernail to kind of help it along. So when I turn it, I know one side is already pressed. And then I'm not trying to make both sides turn in at the same time. All right, so the corner. Make sure I'm zoomed out enough for you to see this. I'm gonna get my hand inside there. I'm taking my thumb and I'm putting my thumb into that corner. So there's my thumb. There we go. There's my thumb right in that corner. I'm putting a finger on both sides and pushing in the middle. So now, because I left that little bit in there and I didn't make a pigtail out of that, look at that corner. All right, so let me go ahead and press that one so you can see, and then we'll do another one.
That is a beautiful corner.
That is a beautiful corner, isn't it? Say thank you to the garment industry, because that's where that corner came from. All right, so I'm just going to go in for another corner here. I've got the first one. So I've got my hand, my whole hand inside there. Let me go the other side here. All right. There's the corner. It's trimmed all the way to, but not through the corner. I'm putting my thumb in the middle of that corner and I'm pushing down with the finger, folding the little flaps that I cut, folding them to the same side and then pushing with my fingernail to push it in. And then if it's got a little like this, you just go like this and it works it out. There's not even a point turner is required really. And definitely not a point turner that you're going to stab in there. Because that's the first way to, and we've all done it. I mean, tell me if there's somebody here who has never used a point turner and ended up poking a hole in what they were turning. I want to give you a gold star because we have all done it. But yeah, there's another one. So I'm just going to quickly turn the rest of this around here and just kind of pull it out as I'm going along. Here's another corner so you get a chance to see it again. Thumb is down in here. Here's the two sides that I left, batting and everything in, didn't cut a pigtail in there. And then I'm just going to push and push it out. Is that like a lot less work than jabbing at it with a point turner?
A whole lot less work.
I show this in when I do the Kimberbell things too. If whatever we're making is an in the hoop project that requires, oh, there's one I forgot. All right, so right straight across, right two, but not through the stitching line. Thumb, finger, and you can press it to either side, it doesn't matter, but press both sides of it to the same side. And then just use your finger to push it through. And then if it doesn't, and just give it a wiggle and it'll actually settle into that corner by itself. One more time with feeling. All right, I'm going to push this one forward because that's the way it seems to want to roll. Doesn't matter as long as they both go to the same side. Now I'm just going to pull the rest of this out so I can see where I still need to go because it's kind of hard with all these points. That one's done. This one's done. This one is done. This one's done. This one looks like it could use some help. I must have missed that one. And I missed this one. So let's get in there and do those. And that one's okay. All right. So now I'm gonna just press, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just stitch in the ditch. Actually, I'm gonna top stitch around first. See, look at how much easier that is. It almost presses itself. See, now all of you can have corners you can be proud of, right? While I'm pressing, I'm going to stick a few pins in it to hold my stitch in the ditch place so that things don't shift around as much. For those of you that were like concerned about my use of steam, you're good now because it's all out of steam and I'm still pressing. I'm still squirting the button, but nothing's coming out. I just bought this iron for myself. And I don't know why I waited so long. I don't know how I ever managed without it.
What iron is it?
It's the Panasonic one. So I press a lot. I press everything. I press a lot. A lot of the stuff that I make requires a lot of pressing. And forever I have fought with the cord getting wrapped around something and it comes up short just when I need to have it be like a half an inch longer. And the last iron that I got, I swear I was so disappointed in it because it didn't even last 6 months before it started spitting water out of where the cord came out of the bottom of the iron. So, I mean, I was like, okay, let me just try the whole cordless iron thing. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I wait so long to do this? Not only that, I don't know if you guys, even if you have it, I don't know if you've noticed it. There's a little button here. When you push that button, this whole tank comes off. So you can actually clean it. You can anti-calc it. You can put like a teaspoon of vinegar, white vinegar in there with some water and steam and steam it through to get all the crud out of the iron. It's like the easiest iron in the world to clean. I've never had one that was that easy to clean. The whole tank comes off. It's great.
It looks like it's a nice size too.
It is a good size. And you know what I like the best about it is that it's pointy on both ends. So it fits inside my hoop if I have to press in the hoop. It'll fit actually into my 5x7 hoop. Look at how nice that's coming out, ladies. Sorry, I think I've gone over our time, but
Jeannie's gonna put that iron on the Christmas list, right?
yes, she does. And I put it on my Christmas list already.
Is it gonna be the freestyle one or the older model?
I have no idea. I just have the one that we just have. Mine's teal. She ordered both of them is what she's saying, Anna. It is?
Did she see I wanted one? I sent her an email.
I'm sorry. What did you say, Jeannie? It's a 30-minute shut off.
Yes, that's the one I wanted. Hopefully she saw my email.
I think she did. It sounds like she did. I think that must be, is that what I got, Jeannie? Okay, I was going to say, because mine does stay on for quite a while before it shuts itself off. And it makes an audible click, which I like. It makes an audible click when it shuts itself off. So if I'm sewing on the other side of the room, I can actually hear the audible click. So I know that it has shut itself off, which is kind of nice. Look at those points. Isn't that beautiful? So much easier, so much better than just making that little pigtail cut. Not to mention, it's easier for you to be successful. Just be careful. I mean, you are cutting all the way to the stitching line, so make sure you don't cut through it. If you do cut through it, not to worry, just go back and restitch it a thread in, just so that you don't have a raw edge poking out.
Look at those beautiful corners and how all the stripes line up.
I love it. I love stripes. Don't you love stripes?
It's beautiful.
Like, no, I don't like stripes at all. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do it this way first because I want that side that I'm going to turn to be the last thing I iron. I'm still poking at it. There's no water left in it. See, you guys didn't think a non-shredder could fussy cut and make all these points and corners, did you? That's my loving terminology for you ladies that quilts all the time, my shredders.
Michelle, you can even use muslin on the back because you're not going to see it.
Yeah, you could use anything. I just used what Jeannie wanted me to use on the back of it because it coordinates and it really is kind of cute. But yeah, I definitely, if it were me for my house, I would. All right, so this side's already pressed. I've already done that. So now I just need to turn this in. And since my batting is graded, it makes it much easier for me to do that. Front's already pressed. I'm just rolling it in. And since the batting is graded, it's kind of staying out of the way. It's still there. It's still going to fill in. So it's not like it's going to be hollow back there because I didn't cut it all out of the seam allowance. I just graded it a little bit. All right. And I'm actually was thinking I might press this, but yeah, I might give it a little press before I go to the machine. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on how well it's laying down. And this is actually laying down pretty well, but I have to press around it anyway. So that's where my joining seam is. And I'm gonna go around and actually top stitch first, because that same 1/4 inch foot, if you use a far right needle position, will give you just about as close to 1/8 of an inch as you can get with that walking foot. So it'll be a perfect top stitch closing seam. All right, look at those corners, ladies. Don't you love it? All right, let me switch over. I'm going to turn the camera off for a minute, so don't think that I'm bailing on you, but I don't want you guys to have motion sickness because I spin. All right. Okay, so same 1/4 inch foot. I never start on the edge. I'll start in the middle somewhere. I'll start anywhere, but I never start on the edge. I'm gonna put the foot down. And then I'm gonna take that Q2. I'm gonna go all the way over to the 7.0 position on the right-hand side. So coupled with that edge of that 1/4 inch foot is gonna get me really, really close to the outside. Also, this would be a great time if you want to change to like a monofilament thread to do your quilting so that nobody sees the stitch in the ditch. So I'm doing the same as I top stitch as I did when I stitched it. I'm watching to see when that needle falls right in that joining seam where the points come together, where the point comes together, so that I know when I turn that corner that it's actually the right. And I've got a little bit of a thread hanging out here, so I'm just going to tuck it back in there. And then stitch around it. Where's my, that's what you use a point turner for, not for turning, but in case you need to, oh, the whole seam is a little bit loose, that's all. Put that back in there. Now I can stitch it down. So as I come up to the corner, I'm waiting, I'm going slow, I'm watching when that needle drops in that connecting seam, and that's when I'm pivoting. Coming to the corner now, watching till it falls into that connecting seam, and then I pivot. Again, you could be doing this with binding. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it with binding. And if you do, and you're wondering about how to do binding around this type of a corner, look up the tutorial, because I did it around this kind of a corner. I showed it in the Technique Tuesday binding video. I think the foot control's running away from me because I want to do pedal to the metal. So it's kind of sliding away going, no. All right, I'm coming up on where I stopped, or where I started actually. And I'm just, rather than have a back tack or anything like that, or a stitch in place, I'm just gonna run over where I started just a little bit by about 5 or 6 stitches. And that'll anchor where I started. And then I can just use the fixed stitch on the front of the machine to tie off. Those are all things you can set to control with that multifunction foot control. All right, so stitching in the ditch, I have a foot for that. And this is, normally this would be the time that I would actually change out to monofilament thread. Maybe because I like to sew fast and I'm like not always as accurate as some of you are, but since I'm gonna just leave that thread in for now, you guys will be forgiving if I'm not if my quilting isn't perfect. Because my points are, my stripes are, right? It's got to count for something. All right, so same thing. This is the stitch in the ditch foot, has a blade, runs down the center. All right, so using a stitch in the ditch foot on this is you want to train your eye to watch the blade, not the needle. And because I don't trust that it's not going to have puckery things, I'm going to, instead of starting at one end and going all the way across, I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to lower the foot, and I'm going to lower the foot and watch the blade fall in the center. And then I'm going to use my left right shift. I'm going to go back to a center the center needle position, but I also want to see if that center needle position is actually going to fall in line right behind the foot. So I'm going to just drop my needle and it's good. So I don't have to use the left right shift at all. If it's not, you want this to be your guide, because you have a guide because you need a guide because you wanted a guide, and the needle wasn't a guide that was working for you. So this is the guide you want to watch. Your eyes always want to be here. So with your machine, you want to move the needle in here, the needle position, so that you don't have to keep looking at the needle to see if it's in the ditch. And then I like to kind of pull apart a little bit. So I am not watching my needle. I am watching the blade.
Are those optional feet that we can purchase?
Yeah, if you don't already have them, absolutely. If you have, so it just depends. Sometimes they gave them with specific deals. Usually the brother machines came with them if they were a quilting kind of machine, came with them. But yes, we have both of them. Would you like me to put both aside for you with your name on them?
How much are they? Do you know?
Well, you get 20% off your class. Jeannie, how much are the are they $39.95 each? I think they're $39.95 each, and then I think you'd get your 20% for your class. The feet, I think they're $39.95. The feet, the center, the stitch in the ditch, and the 1/4 inch. All right, so this is actually working out quite well. I don't have any slop there, and I'm just going to do a stitch in place. With the dual feed, the digital dual feed, you usually don't get much extra. But I still don't trust it not to shift enough to go from one end to the other, because I just feel like there might be a little shifting. So I like to start in the center and work out.
Hey, Michelle?
Yeah.
I'm listening. The button that you push to just tack down the stitches in one place.
Yes.
Does that work with the monofilament as well?
Yes. Oh, it's this one, thanks. And then the 1/4 inch for this.
And then I have this one too.
Oh, what's that? So is anybody on, so we have several. If you don't have the multifunction foot control, we have this stitch in the ditch foot and this stitch in the ditch foot for your basic machine as a machine foot. This is the foot that goes with the digital feed, with the digital dual feed foot. So just, oh, you sold the other 1/4 inch?
I'm sold out.
You're sold out. We have more coming. The sole plates. We sell a lot of them because I show them when we do the sewing class for all of the machines that come with the digital dual feed. So it can be like the Chorus, the 3100, the Ballad, the 2500, the Altair, the Stellaire, the Solaris, and the Luminaire all come with it. So I love this. All right, so I've got that one done. So now I'm going to start over here. And I'm going to start by finding the drop point and dropping my needle. And then I'll put the foot down and then I'll stitch in place. And then I'll just come down this side here. So my eyes are keen. They're set on that little blade, not on the needle going up and down. And that was a lot of us that learned to sew early on have learned or have taught ourselves along the way to watch the needle bob up and down. And it doesn't help us when we're trying to sew straight because, it's moving pretty fast for us to completely follow it, So having a visionary point other than the needle going up and down will help you so much straighter. So hence that one. I love my stripes today, ladies. I hope you love yours too. All right, so if I was using my multifunction foot control, here would be where I would use it, okay? So I would be coming here. My stitch that I selected was a stitch on the machine that had a fixed stitch at the beginning. In other words, it doesn't have two lines, two dash lines, it has a dot. So now I would be kicking the heel, which would do a stitch in place. And then I would take my foot and move it over to the side and click the scissor. So I would never have to touch anything. My hands would never leave the machine. So if you ever wondered what it was like to have three hands when you were sewing and an extra one, just in case you needed it, that foot is that answer.
So you're talking about on that pedal, you can have a toe position and a heel position?
Yeah, you have so forward, when you push the multifunction foot control,
Right.
when you push forward, it's always going to go forward. It's a regular, if you don't have anything set on it, it is just a regular foot control. When you push forward, it goes. When you lift up, it stops. If you have it programmed, when you lift your foot up, if you bring your heel back, then you can set that to do something. So in this case, I would set it to be a stitch up and down, just stitch in place. And then there's a little sidecar that you can, I call it the sidecar. I have mine attached to the right side of my foot. So all I do is I just twist my foot a little bit to the right and tap it, and it cuts my thread. If you want to sew two-footed, they show it in the manual. They show it as having it attached to the left side of the foot. But that means that I have to pick up my left, or I have to have my left foot right next to my right foot. And I don't normally sew like that. I could probably teach myself to do it, but I've had the foot control on the other side for so long that, I'm used to doing it that way. And you can do it either way. The bar goes on either side of the foot. Oh, am I done?
Yeah, I have that foot control and I like it. I actually love it. I didn't know you could do it with the heel. So I'll have to look into that more.
Yeah, just look in your machine settings and you'll see that you'll have two different places that you can change the setting. Okay, ladies, let me take my table runner and throw it on the table here.
Michelle, it's like driving a stick in a car.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a really good analogy, Joanne. So I'm used to an automatic. So I guess moving my foot from one side to the other is okay. Having 2 feet going, probably not going to happen. And here is my table runner, ladies. And I hope you enjoyed our sew along today. And I will get busy downloading the video. Let's see, I'm not too late. Downloading that video, and hopefully I can get it uploaded to YouTube and get it sent out. I'll send you a link to it in the same email that I sent you today's link for class. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I had such a great time sewing with you guys before Thanksgiving. I hope you had fun too. Bye now.
Thanks,
Thank
Michelle.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all the great ideas too.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.